Chapter 484. Gu Yundong beats someone. Gu Yundong felt as if her eardrums were about to burst, and she stopped in her tracks. When the screams stopped, she looked inside. Compared to the two people in the eldest young master's room, this room was much livelier. There was not only second young master Xuan, but also his wife, who was the daughter of the prefecture magistrate, and the concubine with the same name as hers. There were also the mother of the concubine, Xuan's two maids, and 3 other concubines. Gu Yundong had heard from Xuerong that Xuan was lecherous, so there were many beauties in the backyard. However, not many were taken in as concubines. After all, there was a wife there. Initially, there were more than a few concubines. However, there were endless open and hidden conflicts in the backyard. Once they were no longer liked by Xuan, these concubines would not end well. Therefore, the remaining concubines were all successful people left behind after the house fights. However, the strange thing was that the 2 young masters of the Xuan family had yet to have a child. It was understandable for the eldest young master. His wife had died early and his health was not good. However, not only did the second young master have a young and beautiful wife, but he also had concubines who were as beautiful as flowers. None of them had given birth to a child for him. It was probably because he had done too much evil. Gu Yundong shook her head and sighed as she walked towards them. Xuan narrowed his eyes and took a closer look at Gu Yundong. Perhaps out of habit, his eyes lit up when he saw a young and beautiful girl walking over. He even swallowed his saliva unconsciously. Gu Yundong was disgusted by his gaze. He was already a prisoner, yet he still had a lustful heart. She stepped forward and punched him hard in the eye. Xuan cried out in pain. The women beside him all looked at Gu Yundong in shock. "What are you doing? Who are you? Who are you to hit my husband? Do you know who I am?" Judging from her tone, she should be Xuan's wife. Gu Yundong turned to look at her and smiled. "What a show-off. Who are you? I know. Are you the daughter of the prefecture magistrate? Poor thing. The prefecture magistrate has been arrested too." The woman was stunned and her expression changed. "Impossible. How could my father be captured? Otherwise, why hasn't he come to save you yet? It's because he can't even protect himself." This time, not only did the woman's expression turn ugly, but the others were also stunned. They had all been brought into this room and locked up by the soldiers who had suddenly appeared. They had vaguely heard that their crime included colluding with the enemy and betraying the country. The soldiers were to execute their entire families. All of them were trembling in fear. Their only hope was second young mistress father, who was an official. Therefore, even though they were locked in such a small room, they were still very respectful to the second young madam. Their attitude was even a little flattering. They only hoped that when she was saved, she would take them away with her. After all, no one wanted to die. But now, they were told that even the prefecture magistrate couldn't protect himself, so who else could save them? Instantly, the other women present began to look at the young madam differently. They even began to blame each other. Gu Yundong did not look at them. Her gaze landed on Xuan again, and the corners of her lips curled up again. Xuan felt his scalp go numb for some reason and could not help but move back. However, Gu Yundong suddenly stepped forward, clenched her fists, took a deep breath, and hit him heavily. "Stop, what are you doing? What right do you have to hit me?" Chapter 485. Remember Gu Dajiang? Gu Yundong did not speak, but her punches became heavier and heavier. Not only did Xuan scream in pain, even the others beside him were trembling in fear. The concubines did not dare to come forward, but Madame Tang shouted, "Stop! Who are you? Did my husband offend you? We were arrested, but there's still the imperial court to convict us. You're using lynching." Gu Yundong felt an itch in her ears. Were these people used to being high and mighty masters? Were they so arrogant that they could not see their own situation clearly? No one made a sound. Only she was still in the limelight. Gu Yundong finally stopped and narrowed her eyes to look in that direction. Madame Tang trembled under her cold gaze and had a bad feeling. Gu Yundong lifted her leg and kicked Xuan. Then she left him and walked towards Madame Tang step by step. What are you doing? Madame Tang was a little afraid now. She sat on the ground and moved back. Gu Yundong bent down and slapped her face. Madame Tang widened her eyes in shock. You, Gu Yundong smiled and slapped her again. Another slap. Gu Yundong looked at her well-proportioned red and swollen face and smiled in satisfaction. How beautiful! You don't even have to put on rouge. Thank me properly. Madame Tang wanted to speak and curse, but her face was unbelievably swollen. The moment she opened her mouth, it hurt terribly. On the other side, there was a small th sound. It was not loud. Unfortunately, Gu Yundong's sharp ears still heard it. She raised her eyebrows and looked at the person who was laughing. She was about the same age as Gu Yundong herself, and she was standing next to a familiar-looking woman. Oh, Gu Yundong remembered now. Wasn't this woman the one she had seen in the kitchen? So the one next to her should be the concubine Gu Yundong. She walked towards her. The Gu concubine was a little afraid of her. When she saw that Gu Yundong had noticed her, she immediately swallowed nervously. Before she could speak, Gu Yundong slapped her. The Gu concubine's eyes widened. Why did you hit me? I didn't say anything bad about you, and I didn't offend you. Gu Yundong did not say anything. She slapped her a few more times. When she felt a little better, she finally stopped. The Gu concubine did not dare to speak, and her mother was even more afraid of death. She did not even dare to look. The entire house was silent. No one dared to make a sound. Especially the concubines, they were trembling in fear. Master had been beaten up, young madam had been beaten up, and the Gu concubine had also been beaten up. Was it their turn next? Just as they were feeling uneasy, Gu Yundong stood up. Her cold gaze swept across the three of them. It was just a little pain. How could it compare to the pain of her father being thrown out of the Exan residence with blood all over his body and almost losing his life? How could it compare to the pain of his shoulder being burned and blistered? How could it compare to the feeling of helplessness when his fingers were broken and he could not even lift the bowl and chopsticks? It was just a few slaps. Not hurtful at all. Exan Ziyuan finally recovered. He looked at Gu Yundong with hatred. Who exactly are you? Second young master is forgetful. Let me remind you. Gu Yundong glanced at him. A month ago, did second young master beat up a man called Gu Dajiang and throw him out of the Xian residence? Chapter 486. In the farmer girl you're looking for X's Yuan frowned, unable to recall. Instead, it was Madame Tang and the Gu concubine who had a deep impression of that competition. They immediately widened their eyes in shock. Who are you to him? The two of them spoke almost at the same time. Exan finally thought of the poor-looking man who was dressed in rags. Gu Yundong squatted down. His daughter. The expressions of the three of them changed drastically. That person's daughter? They knew in their hearts how badly that person had been beaten up back then. After being thrown out of the Xian family, he would most likely not survive. So, his daughter was here to avenge him? Gu Yundong seemed to know what they were thinking. Don't worry. My father isn't dead. He's alive and well. But I'm not sure if you're going to die soon. She stood up and looked down at the three of them. Actually, I was thinking that since my father was beaten up by the three of you, I wouldn't implicate the innocent. I would just settle the score with the three of you. Unfortunately, she smiled and suddenly looked at Exan Yun. A bad premonition flashed across the Exan Ziyuan's heart, and his voice trembled slightly. Unfortunately what? It's a pity that you have designs on white sugar. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Didn't you want to go to the Xuanhe prefecture to find the farmer who made white sugar and force them to hand over the formula so that you can use it to earn money? Exan Ziyuan's pupils constricted. How did you know? Of course I know. After all, I'm the farmer you're looking for. How is it? Isn't it a surprise? Exan Ziyuan looked at her as if he had seen a ghost. His mind was in a mess. This person was the sugar producer. This person was the daughter of the man he had attacked back then. This person actually knew that he had designs on white sugar. He lowered his eyes and muttered, "How could it be? How could it be?" Gu Yundong still felt that it was not enough. She said, "Actually, when I first came to the Wanqing prefecture, I really thought of cooperating with the Xan family. Unfortunately, before I could find second young master, I encountered you trying to kill my father. My father had to recuperate for a month before he could walk. I have to settle this score with you no matter what, right? I didn't expect that when I was thinking of a way to deal with you, you still didn't think that you had done enough evil and wanted to find the person who made white sugar. Then I really can't let you off. Look, this is probably what they mean by karma, right? If you had treated my father better and been more polite back then, you might not have ended up like this. Xen Ziyuan's face turned pale. So, everything was because they had attacked that man? After Gu Yundong finished speaking, her hand was still itchy and she wanted to hit them again. However, Emo Shulin finally pushed open the door and entered. That's enough. Anyway, they won't have a good ending. Gu Yundong glanced at him before walking out of the door. To be honest, her hand still hurt a little, but it felt good to hit others with her hand. Before the door could close, the house was already in chaos. Hearing Emo Zulin's words, which seemed to be a death sentence, and hearing Gu Yundong's words, which explained that the source of everything was actually the competition between the Tang and Gu concubines, the other concubines who had been implicated could not help but pounce on them one by one and bite and kick them. Bitch, it's all your fault. If you want to fight, then fight. Why torture an outsider whose identity you didn't even know? We're dead because of you. Chapter 487. Satisfied Gu Yundong looked at him and shrugged. See? Even if I don't do anything, they'll be beaten half to death. Emo Shulin had a headache. He signaled for the people at the door to hold them back. Seriously, they could still fight so fiercely even with their hands and feet tied. What surprised him was actually the mother of the Gu concubine. She was actually hitting the Gu concubine most fiercely. She kicked and scolded, "You jinx, I'm really unlucky to have you. I'll die with you." As she spoke, she shouted towards the soldiers who rushed over, "Sir, I'm not from the Xen family. My daughter is only a concubine. I'm not even a proper relative of the Xian family. Let me go." No one paid attention to her. Emo Shulin had already closed the door. "All right, now that you've vented your anger, and everyone in the Xian family can't escape, you can rest assured, right?" Gu Yundong took the small box from his hand and snorted. "Only sort of." With that, she led Shui Rong to the door. After leaving the door, she saw the Duan's siblings talking. When they saw her, they were both stunned. After Gu Yundong left, Miss Duan asked, "Who is that girl? Why can she enter?" "Lord Emo only said that her surname is Gu. I don't know anything else. She shouldn't be from Wanqing Prefecture." Duan Chen said, "But Lord Emo treats her very well. I'm afraid we can't offend her. When we meet in the future, it's better to befriend her." "I see." Duan Wan nodded. The Duan family was in business, so their interests were naturally very important. They knew what was beneficial to them. Gu Yundong carried the small box back to the inn. It was already noon. There were people everywhere in the lobby of the inn. As soon as they walked in, they heard about the prefecture magistrate and the Xian family. Everyone was discussing. Some of them were well informed and even said that there was a huge commotion in the capital. It was even more bloody than in Wanqing Prefecture. Gu Yundong let it go and went upstairs with Shui Rong. When she reached the door, she saw Tong Shuitao welcoming her happily. She pushed Shui Rong to the side and whispered into Gu Yundong's ear, "Miss, Master has been sitting in the room for a long time. He won't listen to me even if I persuade him to lie down." Gu Yundong nodded. She pushed the door open and saw Gu Dajiang sitting there with a frown. No one knew what he was thinking. She sat opposite him with a smile. "Father, have you eaten lunch?" When Gu Dajiang saw her, he could finally ask the question that had been accumulating in his heart for a long time. "Yundong, there are rumors everywhere that the Xen residence has been confiscated. Is that true?" "Of course it is." "Then this matter, Father wants to ask me if I'm involved in this matter." Gu Dajiang hesitated for a moment before nodding. He felt that it was a little surreal. If his daughter got involved, the other party was the Xian family. No one in the entire Wanqing Prefecture dared to offend the Xian family. How could his daughter get involved with a 100-year-old family that even the Duan family had to retreat from? However, if his daughter was not involved, then during this period of time, Yundong had been too busy. Occasionally, when she mentioned the Xian family, she would look as if the other party was about to be finished. Yesterday, she even said that a storm was coming. All of this indicated that Yundong might know something. Not only did she know, but she had also done something. Dajiang thought of the angry and suppressed expression on Yundong's face when she found out that he had been beaten half to death by the second young master of the Xian family. So, you got involved. Chapter 488, Strange Paper Appears. Yes, I'm involved. The dust had settled, so she didn't have to hide it anymore. Dajiang's eyes widened. It was really... Then, how much did you get involved in? Seeing his conflicted expression, Yundong could not help but laugh. More or less. It's the most crucial step. Which step? Father should already know that Shui Rong came from the Xian family, right? Yundong told him about how Shui Rong's sister had accidentally found out about the evidence of the Xian family's crimes. She did not go into too much detail. Anyway, the charges against the Xian family would be out soon. His father would understand. On the other hand, Tong Shuitao finally understood why Shui Rong had been following Mississippi. It turned out that he had gone to do something big. She had misunderstood him. Thinking of this, Tong Shuitao looked at him apologetically. Seeing that he was still holding a heavy small box, she quickly went to take it to relieve his burden. Unexpectedly, Shui Rong turned his body and moved the box to the other side, not letting her touch it. Tong Shuitao, get lost. Dajiang was shocked when he heard that. It turned out that this was so complicated. Shui Rong had such a tragic history. The eldest young master of the Xian family was simply a beast. Dajiang admitted that he had seen many such crazy things on his way to escape, but when he heard this story, he was still so angry that his entire body trembled. It took him a while to calm down. Fortunately, evil had its retribution. He looked at Shui Rong and said, "Now that you've taken revenge, you can stay at our house in peace in the future. Our family is different from the Xian family. We won't do such a crazy thing." "Yes, my lord." When Dajiang looked at Yundong again, his face was filled with relief. As he watched, he couldn't help but laugh. Yundong's face darkened. "Father, what are you laughing at?" "Father just thinks that our Yundong is a very outstanding person." "That's for sure." As Yundong spoke, she asked Shui Rong to place the small box on the table. She pushed it in front of Dajiang. In the face of his puzzled expression, Yundong smiled slyly. "This is the reward they gave me. Father, would you take a look?" Dajiang opened the box suspiciously. The next moment he was stunned. He looked at the contents of the small box in disbelief. He felt as if his eyes were about to be blinded. Yundong took out a book from inside. "I heard that this is the only copy. Father, take a look." Dajiang suddenly came back to his senses. His gaze landed on the book, and his fingers couldn't help but tremble when he saw the words on it. He wiped the sweat from his palms excitedly and took the book. Then he carefully opened it. After reading a few pages, he cherished it and closed it again. "This is worth 1,000 gold coins." His gaze fell on the small box again, and his expression gradually became solemn. "Yundong, keep these things well. They'll be your dowry in the future." Yundong laughed. "What dowry? I've picked it out for you." As she spoke, she began to take things out. "Look, this brush, this inkstone, do you like them? And this jade pendant, if I put it on your belt in the future, you will definitely look grand. And this fan, the words on it seem to have been written by some calligraphy expert in the past. And this, what is this?" Yundong looked at the unfamiliar piece of paper that suddenly appeared in the small box. Chapter 489. We have a shop. She had personally placed everything in this small box. Yundong was very sure that she had not put a piece of paper in. She pulled the paper out suspiciously and opened it to take a look. "This is..." Dajiang also came over and said in surprise, "A contract." "Yes, a contract. Moreover, It was a contract for the transfer of a shop. Gu Yundong looked at it once, then lowered her head to look in the box. As expected, she found a key. Gu Yundong laughed as she held the contract in one hand and the key in the other. It seems that Mo Shulin put it in this box. Perhaps he feels that he owes it to me. Thinking of the thousands of taels of silver in her spatial storage, Gu Yundong instantly felt a little guilty. However, the guilt was quickly sent flying. She held the contract and asked Gu Dajiang, "Father, do you want to take a look?" Gu Dajiang was a little excited. He read the contract again and again. "This shop belongs to our family?" "Yes." "Let's go take a look." Gu Dajiang stood up. Perhaps because the movement was too big, it pulled at his wound and he immediately gritted his teeth. Gu Yundong quickly reached out to help him up. "Father, why don't we go when you're better?" "No need, no need." Gu Dajiang waved his hand. After a while, he felt much better. Then he smiled and said, "I'm fine. I'm much better. It's just that I rose too suddenly just now. Doctor, you also said that after lying down for a month, I can go out for a walk." "All right, let's go over and take a look. But we have to eat lunch first." Gu Yundong had glanced at the address just now. It seemed to be on the same road as this inn, so it was not far. Shui Rong went down to get the waiter to serve the food. At this moment, the people downstairs had yet to disperse. Although they had eaten and drunk their fill, they were still discussing things. All of them were red in the face. When Gu Yundong and the others came down, they saw someone talking loudly. The guy was so excited that he even danced. Gu Yundong hurriedly helped Gu Dajiang to the side to avoid being hit. After leaving the inn, she realized that there were many people discussing this matter outside. Occasionally, when they passed by a small stall, they could hear the stall owner and customers chatting. It seemed that this matter had caused a stir in the entire city. The four of them walked slowly, so they listened all the way. When they arrived at their destination, they saw a large shop with 8 rooms in front of them. However, there was a seal on the entrance of the shop, clearly forbidding anyone from entering. Gu Yundong lowered her head and carefully looked at the address on the contract. Then she looked up at the shop in front of her. That's right, this was the place. Shui Rong was silent for a moment before walking forward and saying, "Miss, this shop seemed to belong to the Exan family previously. The Exan family's house was confiscated, so the shop must have been sealed. The contract that Lord Mo gave you is a red contract, so it must have been registered in the government. It's just that the government office is in chaos now, so they probably haven't had time to remove the seal." Gu Yundong thought about it and agreed. They had started arresting people before dawn today. It had not even been a day yet. How could they have the time to care about a small shop? "Since it's still sealed, let's go back," Gu Dajiang said. He did want to go in and take a look. This shop seemed to be quite big, and there was probably a courtyard behind it. The sign said that it was a silk shop. It should have been in the cloth and satin business in the past. The four of them returned in disappointment and could only return to the inn first. Unexpectedly, as soon as they entered, the waiter welcomed them. "Master Gu, Miss Gu, you're back? Someone is looking for you." Chapter 490, Do you want to come with us? Someone was looking for him? Gu Yundong followed the waiter's finger and saw the person standing not far from the staircase. It was Uncle Yu. Uncle Yu also saw them and hurried forward. Dajiang. After greeting him, he sized his friend up from head to toe. "Are your injuries healed?" "Brother Yu, why are you here?" Gu Dajiang was also very surprised. He happily patted Uncle Ye's shoulder. In the end, he accidentally pulled his wound again. Gu Yundong held her forehead. "Father, let's go upstairs first." Uncle Yu nodded repeatedly. Yes. "Be quiet. I'll help you walk." Uncle Yu actually already knew how Gu Dajiang's injury came about. The last time Shui Rong went to the Yu family, he mentioned it, but he didn't say that it was done by the Exan family. However, as soon as Shui Rong left, Grandpa Yu asked Uncle Yu to find out. Uncle Yu had been in the prefectural city for a while and knew many people. In addition, Gu Yundong had met Gu Dajiang when she went to the Exan residence that day. He had gone to the Exan residence to ask around and knew what had happened. The father and son pondered for a moment and quickly understood why Gu Yundong did not let them see Gu Dajiang. Perhaps it was the aftereffects of escaping from the famine, but the three of them were very sensitive to some subtle changes. For example, the atmosphere in the city seemed to be very tense recently, as if something big was about to happen. In order to avoid causing trouble for the Gu family, they didn't visit Gu Dajiang again. Even Uncle Yu, who was working outside, did not go out much these days. At most, he found jobs nearby. Today, when Uncle Yu went to the market, he happened to hear that the Xian family was finished. He could not wait to come over. The group entered the house, and Tong Shuitao obediently served tea. Uncle Yu then asked about Gu Dajiang's situation. Knowing that he was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. My father was also very worried about you. No one expected you to encounter such a thing. Fortunately, the Xian family has been confiscated. It can be considered retribution. Uncle Yu sighed as he looked at Gu Dajiang. At this moment, Gu Dajiang was completely different from a month ago. It was as if he had become a different person. His face was no longer as gray as before, and his clothes were no longer tattered. Even his spirit was better, and he seemed to have gained weight. He even had a faint aura. He had studied before, and now he looked more refined. Facing Gu Dajiang like this, Uncle Yu felt inexplicably ashamed and uncomfortable. He could not help but tug his hand and ask, "By the way, you've recovered. Are you planning to return to the Xuanhe prefecture?" "Yes, my wife, second son, and youngest daughter are all at home. I want to see them as soon as possible." "So, when do you plan to leave?" Gu Dajiang pointed at Gu Yundong. "You have to ask her. I feel that my injuries are almost healed. It's not a big problem to be careful on the way. However, Yundong said that I have to stay for half a month before she's willing to leave. She's afraid that I won't be able to take it on the way." There was some pride in his words. Gu Dajiang couldn't change the habit of showing off his child's filial piety in front of his friends. Gu Yundong laughed. "Father, don't mess around. Doctor Yu only allowed you to leave this in today." As she spoke, she turned to look at Uncle Yu. "Uncle, actually, I have something to ask you." "Yes? What is it?" "Do you want to return to the Xuanhe prefecture with us?" Chapter 491. Going to the Yu family again. Uncle Yu was stunned. "To the Xuanhe prefecture?" "Yes, I was thinking that you cannot return to the village you were in now, and you don't have any relatives in the prefectural city. My father has been under your care these few days. He's your friend and can't bear to part with you." Gu Dajiang nodded repeatedly. "Yes, why don't you come with us?" Gu Yundong continued. "Our Yongfu village is actually not bad. The village chief is also kind, and the villagers are very diligent and friendly. If you come, we can take care of each other. I have a workshop in the village and don't have enough manpower now. If you can come and help me, it'll be most at ease." Uncle Yes' fingers moved. Help her? She was clearly the one helping them. She wanted them to know that they wouldn't have to worry about not having a job even if they went to Yongfu village. Uncle Yu was tempted for a moment, but he quickly suppressed it. He thought for a while before saying, "I have to go back and discuss it with my father and Xiao Jin." Xiao Jin was his son. Of course. Uncle Yu chatted with Gu Dajiang for a while more. After all, he had something on his mind and returned not long after. Gu Dajiang looked at his back and said to Gu Yundong, "It's unlikely that the Yu family will follow us back to Yongfu village." Gu Yundong was stunned. "Why?" "You'll find out in a day or two." Gu Yundong blinked, but on second thought, she felt that it made sense. After all, they had lived in Wanqing prefecture for a period of time and had finally settled down. In the end, it didn't make sense for them to go all the way to a completely unfamiliar place. In fact, she was not confident. Forget it. Regardless of whether they went or not, she would respect their choice. 2 days later, Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang went to Uncle Yes' courtyard. When she passed by that road again, the hooligans who had caused her trouble were no longer there. However, many of the neighbors who lived there greeted Gu Dajiang curiously when they saw him. Especially when they saw 2 servants following behind him, they started whispering. "Gu Dajiang is rich. He even has servants now. Look at his clothes." I saw them at the silk shop last time. They cost 3 taels of silver. Wow, so expensive? In the past, Dajiang even had to use 3 copper coins sparingly. Do you think they're going to the Yu family? Is the Yu family going to get rich too? Tisk, forget it. Let me tell you, it's been a month since Dajiang left. Only 2 servants have come. He just showed his face today. Didn't you see that the Yu family has been living so bitterly for the past month? If Dajiang really had a conscience, he would have given the Yu family a couple of taels of silver. The Yu family wouldn't still be living in this lousy place. Oh, how dare you say that? Do you think a couple of taels of silver come from the wind? No one dared to say these words in front of Dajiang and the others. They only started spouting nonsense when they disappeared. At this moment, Yundong and the others had already entered the Yu family. Uncle Yu was cleaning the courtyard. When he saw them enter, he quickly came over to help Dajiang sit. Uncle Yu, I'm fine. You don't have to help me. Don't take advantage of the fact that you're still young and don't pay attention. If you fall ill, you'll suffer when you reach my age. Yundong nodded vigorously. Grandpa Yu is right. Uncle Yu also came out at this moment. After everyone sat down, Yundong got down to business. Chapter 492, The Yu Family's Decision. Grandpa Yu, have you considered it? Do you want to return to the Xuanhe Prefecture with us? Yundong hoped that they would leave together. The Yu family did not have any relatives here. If they encountered any problems, they would be isolated and helpless. At the very least, they would be able to take care of each other when they went to the Xuanhe Prefecture. Moreover, the Yu family had taken care of her father for so long. She wanted to repay them no matter what. Uncle Yu and Uncle Yu looked at each other. A moment later, Uncle Yu wiped his face and said with a smile, Girl, Grandpa Yu thanks you for your kind intentions. However, we still want to stay in Wanqing Prefecture. But, Uncle Yu waved his hand and interrupted her persuasion. I know you want to take care of us. I also believe that if we follow you to the Xuanhe Prefecture, we won't have to worry about food and clothing. Our lives will be much better than now. However, we can't rely on you for everything. Yes, your father received our help a few months ago, but we only gave him a place to live. Compared to the time when you sent a basket of food to save our lives, it's insignificant. Yundong said, the basket of sweet potatoes I gave you was because you informed us in advance so that we could avoid the chaos. In that case, you should be the ones who saved us first. Uncle Yu laughed out loud. Alright. If you want to calculate it this way, you won't be able to finish it. He was in a good mood and did not regret helping this young lady at all. There was a cause and effect. The old saying was indeed true. Uncle Yu smiled, but very quickly, his expression became serious again. Girl, actually, there's another important reason why we didn't go to the Xuanhe Prefecture. As he spoke, his expression became a little sad. Back then, on the way to escape, my wife and my daughter-in-law didn't survive. Later, after we settled down in Wanqing Prefecture, we moved their graves over and let them settle down. During the new year, we would visit them and burn something for them. If we went to the Xuanhe Prefecture, it would be a long journey. It would be difficult to see them. As he spoke, he wiped his face. I'm already so old. I don't know how much longer I can live. When I'm free, I can still go and talk to my wife. Don't let no one visit them when the time comes. If the grass on the grave grows to half the height of a person and there's no one to take care of them, they'll be so sad. On the way to escape, they starve to death to give us a bite to eat. How can we leave them behind now? In the end, Uncle Yu could not help but tear up. Yundong panicked and quickly handed him a handkerchief. Yes, Grandpa Yu is right. I didn't consider everything. It's my fault. Uncle Yu quickly stopped his tears and smiled when he heard her words. What's your fault? You're a good child. You want Grandpa Yu to live a good life, but Grandpa Yu has 3 grown sons. How can he let a little girl who hasn't reached adulthood take care of him? Uncle Yu's eyes were also red. Although he was sad at the mention of his deceased mother and wife, he could still control his emotions. He only said with a slightly choked voice, That's right, girl. Just take your father back in peace and don't worry about us. Let's work hard. Our lives will get better. The next time you come, we might all live in a big house. Gu Yundong smiled. All right, I'll wait. After a pause, she said, but if you don't follow us to the Xuanhe prefecture, I have something to ask you for help with. Chapter 493. Eugene being beaten. Gu Dajiang, who had been silent all this while, was stunned. Then, as if he had thought of something, he immediately stopped talking. Uncle Yu and Uncle Yu were very straightforward. Tell us, what do you need our help with? As long as we can do it, we will definitely help. I have a shop in Wanqing Prefecture, but there's no one. Before she could finish speaking, she saw someone running in from the door. Gu Yundong took a closer look. Wasn't this Grandpa Zhang, whom she had met the other day? Old Yu, quickly go over and take a look. Your grandson was beaten up. Everyone in the room was stunned and hurriedly stood up. Seeing this, Gu Yundong immediately reached out to help Gu Dajiang. Shui Rong immediately supported Uncle Yu and the few of them walked out of the courtyard. Eugene happened to walk into the courtyard. When he saw everyone, he was stunned for a moment before squeezing out a smile. Uncle Gu, you're here? Everyone looked at his face. It was bruised and swollen. He did look like he had been beaten up. Uncle Yu took 2 steps forward. What happened? How did you get beaten up like this? Who hit you? Eugene shook his head. Master, I'm fine. I also beat the other party up. He's even worse than me. When the 2 Yu family members heard this, their anger decreased a little. They quickly brought Eugene into the house. Uncle Yu hurriedly went not far away to send for a doctor. The other party took a look, prescribed some medicine, and left. It was not a big deal. Uncle Yu regained his senses and asked, What happened? Aren't you in the shop now? When he heard about the shop, Eugene's expression darkened. Father, there's no more work in the shop. They'll find another one later. Why is it gone? Eugene pursed his lips and said in a low voice, Wasn't the Xen family's house confiscated? Their shops were also taken back by the imperial court. The shopkeepers and waiters inside are all being interrogated. Those who are guilty were arrested, and those who aren't guilty were released. In the past, there was a waiter who worked in the Xen family's shop. He was our shopkeeper's relative. Now that the waiter has nothing to do, he came to our shop to find a job. The result was obvious. The shopkeeper didn't like Eugene to begin with. After all, Eugene was tolerant and diligent. The boss had already praised him twice when he came twice. If this continued, Eugene would probably replace him as the shopkeeper. This time, his relative came to look for work, and he immediately agreed. He was picky with Eugene, saying that if he kept breaking stuff and his salary would be deducted and he would have to compensate. Eugene could be considered to have been trained to have a good temper. Even so, he could not help but flare up. He finally knew that no matter how well he did, no matter how much he could tolerate, the shopkeeper would find a reason for him to make room for his relative. As soon as this anger rose, he simply quit. He pointed at the shopkeeper and scolded him fiercely. The shopkeeper was so angry that he fell backward. The relative beside him, who had been watching the show, rolled up his sleeves and was about to hit him for helping him vent his anger. The 2 of them started fighting in the shop. After all, Eugene had experienced a disaster and had a lot of strength. That person was no match for him. If the shopkeeper had not rushed up to help, Eugene would not have been injured. Uncle Yu and his son were furious when they heard that. This shopkeeper is not a good person. In the past, he used to say that our Xiao Jin did not do well and gave us less money. Now, in order to make room for his relative, he even tormented our Xiao Jin like this. Gu Yundong looked at Gu Dajiang and suddenly said, That's great. Chapter 494. What about me? The Yu father and son were speechless. Huh? Uncle Yu asked uncertainly, Gu girl, do you mean that it's too good for Xiao Jin to hit the shopkeeper? No, I mean it's great that brother Eugene isn't working in that shop. Everyone was speechless. Gu Yundong smiled. Actually, even if this hadn't happened to brother Eugene today, I would have asked him to quit his job in the shop. I've long heard that his shopkeeper is stingy and he doesn't earn much money. The shopkeeper doesn't do anything and only knows how to boss people around. The better brother Eugene does, the more others don't like him. How many years will it take for him to stand out in such a place? So I want to invite brother Eugene, Uncle Yu, and grandfather Yu to help in my shop. The three members of the Yu family widened their eyes and exclaimed, "Your shop?" "Yes," Gu Yundong said in embarrassment. "I just got a shop recently and haven't opened business yet. Actually, I was thinking that if you come back to the Xuanhe prefecture with us, you'll have to find someone else to help look after this shop. But I'm not familiar with the Wanqing prefecture. Uncle Yu knows many people, so I want Uncle Yu to introduce someone. Since you're not coming with us, I can ask you to help take care of the shop. To be honest, I only trust you here." The Yu family members looked incredulous. You mean you want us to look after the shop?" "Yes, didn't brother Eugene work in a grocery store? It just so happens that I plan to open a grocery store in my place." Gu Yundong actually wanted to open a shop selling all kinds of sweets, dried fruits, and preserved fruits, just like Gus in Fengkai County. However, this place was too far from Yongfu village. It would take a lot of time and money to transport the goods over. The cost was too high and it was not worth it. At the very least, she had to wait until her business expanded and there was a workshop here. Later on, she even thought of opening a medicinal shop, but selling herbs required a professional. Moreover, the preparation of the medicinal shop at the beginning would take too much time. After thinking about it, he could open a grocery store first. Firstly, it could help the Yu family. After all, Eugene had experience and it was convenient for him to do this. Secondly, Uncle was actually quite a loyal and talkative person. He had only been in Wanqing prefecture for half a year, but he knew many people from all walks of life and had channels to buy goods. Previously, it was because Uncle Yu had introduced a cheap supply channel to the grocery store where Eugene was working that Eugene caught the eye of the boss and received the boss praise, causing the shopkeeper to be dissatisfied. Thirdly, it was easy for the grocery store to change business. Gu Yundong had seen that the location of the shop was very good. In the future, when her business grew and she had a workshop here, she could still sell candy inside. It would be easy for the grocery store to change business. After the Yu family heard what she said, they could not come back to their senses for a long time. They knew very well that Gu Yundong was clearly helping them, but she kept saying that they were the only people she could trust. This made them unable to find a reason to refuse. Uncle Yu, just agree. Otherwise, Yundong really doesn't know who to look for. I'm also in a hurry to go home and see my wife and kids. If Yundong's shop isn't settled, we won't be able to leave. Gu Dajiang also persuaded them. Since they had already said this, the three members of the Yu family immediately gritted their teeth and nodded. All right, then we'll help you look after this shop. What about me? At this moment, a faint voice suddenly came from behind. Chapter 495. Let's go see the shop together. Everyone suddenly turned around and saw Grandpa Zhang squeezing out a smile. He chuckled as he approached Gu Yundong and said, "Well, Miss Gu, actually, I'm still young, strong, and capable. Do you think I can also go to your shop to help?" This person actually didn't leave? The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She was a little unwilling to look at Grandpa Zhang. She was silent for a while before saying, "Since the shop has been handed over to Grandpa Yu, it's up to them whether they need people or not." Grandpa Zhang immediately turned his head and looked at Uncle Yu pitifully. "Old Yu, we've been friends for many years. You know me best." Look, for many years? Their family had only moved here half a year earlier. The corners of Uncle Yes' mouth twitched as he said, "It's too early to talk about this. We still don't know where the shop is, how big it is, or what the situation is. No matter what, you have to wait for us to take a look before we can decide, right?" Grandpa Zhang thought about it and agreed. He quickly said, "All right, then it's settled. If you lack people, you definitely have to look for me. I'm still young and strong." Uncle Yu was speechless. "All right, go home first. We haven't discussed this matter yet. We have to take it slow." Although Grandpa Zhang still wanted to listen, he was afraid that the other party would get impatient and he would really not have a chance. He sighed and looked at Gu Yundong, then at Gu Dajiang, and finally at Uncle Yu. Finally, he left reluctantly. Everyone from the Yu family looked helpless. After he left and Eugene closed the courtyard door, Uncle Yu said, "Old Zhang's mouth is mean, but he is a good person. However, he's old. If we really need to hire someone, his eldest son is diligent enough." Dajiang nodded. "Indeed. Brother Zhang is a good person and has a good memory. Grandpa Yu, I've already said that it's up to you to decide whether to hire someone or not. In any case, you're the one paying the wages," Yundong said. "Me? Of course. I'm in the Xuanhe prefecture. Even if I want to come, I can only come once in a year. You have to take care of everything here. Therefore, I've thought about the salary and will give you dividends directly. You can take 30% of what you earn every month. The more you earn, the more you get." "That won't do." Uncle Yu immediately shook his head. "We're just looking after the shop. A fixed salary is enough." Yundong knew that he was unwilling to take advantage of others, so she could only speak patiently from the perspective of a businessperson. "Grandpa Yu, let's not talk about anything else. Let's just say that this is the first time you've opened a shop and are managing it yourself. Other than brother Eugene having some experience, you have to slowly figure everything out. So for the first few months, it will be hard to tell if you'd make a profit. If you lose money and we give you a high monthly salary, you'll definitely feel bad, right?" The Yu father and son looked at each other. Yundong spoke logically and she was eloquent. In the end, they decided on the dividends. In the end, she said, "By the way, that shop has a backyard. It's quite big. You guys can move in there. Firstly, it's convenient. After all, this place is a little far. Secondly, there will be people guarding the shop. It's safer." Uncle Yu sighed inwardly. Seeing that she was smiling as if she would not give up if he did not agree, he smiled and nodded. Girl, can we take a look at that shop?" "Sure." Chapter 496. Complicated feelings. It had been 2 days since the Xian residence had been raided. Someone was temporarily in charge of the government office, waiting for the emperor to transfer a new prefecture magistrate over. Yundong's contract was personally given to her by Mo Shulin. Yesterday, Shui Rong had gone to the government office to ask about it. The contract had been opened early this morning, so it was not a problem for her to enter. When the group of people came out of the Yu residence, they saw many people looking over curiously. The crowd waited until they were gone before they began to talk. "Where is the Yu family going? Could it be that Dajiang is planning to give the Yu family some benefits on account of their past relationship? What benefits? Don't tell me they're going to help the Yu family move out of here? Stop joking. That's impossible. The Yu family doesn't have any luggage. How can they move out? I think they'll at most treat the Yu family to a meal at a big restaurant." "No way. The Yu family took Dajiang in for a few months, but he's repaying them with just one meal? That's too stingy. That's why Dajiang is an ingrate." Cough, cough. Suddenly, a sudden cough sounded from behind the crowd. Everyone turned around and saw Grandpa Zhang standing behind them with an unfathomable expression. He sneered at these people who were making sarcastic remarks. "All right, why are you so troublesome? How can brother you not know what kind of person Dajiang is? Go do what you need to do." "Hey, old Zhang, you were in the Yu family just now, right? What did they say? Tell us." "What did they say?" Grandpa Zhang said impatiently. "How would I know? Disperse, disperse." With that, he turned around and left with his hands behind his back. However, there was a sly smile on his face. He wasn't going to tell these people that the Yu family was about to own a shop. What if they went to fawn on old Yu later? When he was hired to work and earn money, he would show off in front of these people. Just thinking about it made him happy. They must have gone to look at the shop, right? He really wanted to follow them to take a look. Uncle Yu, who was being gossiped about, felt his ears itch and could not help but reach out to rub them. The Yu family was a little far away from the shop. When they reached the entrance of the alley, everyone still got into the carriage. By the time they reached the shop, it was already past noon. Yundong brought them to a nearby restaurant for a meal before walking towards the shop. Only when they stood at the entrance of the shop did the Yu family look ahead in shock. This This was the shop that the Gu family was talking about? Such a big shop would be a grocery store? This was especially shocking for Eugene. He had been working in the grocery store for more than half a year and more or less knew some things. This was the busiest street in the entire Wanqing prefecture. This shop was at least twice the size of the one he stayed in. Most importantly, this used to be the silk shop of the Xian family. It was the place where the relative of the shopkeeper who ran to snatch his job this morning had worked. He never expected that the person who had arrogantly chased him out and told him to go back and do manual labor would now swap places with him. At this moment, Eugene's feelings were exceptionally complicated. What made him feel even more complicated was that he knew very well that with such a shop in such a place, no matter what business he opened, as long as he did not seek death, he would not lose out even if he did not have experience. Eugene could not help but look at Gu Yundong, who seemed to sense his gaze and met his hesitant expression. She guessed what he wanted to say and immediately blinked at him and shushed him. Chapter 497. All excited then, Gu Yundong called for everyone to go inside. The shop used to be a silk shop, but everything inside had been emptied. Those were also the assets of the Xian family. Naturally, they were taken away by the officials. However, there were still some fabrics that had been cut and left behind. They were still placed on the cabinet. Uncle Yu couldn't help but widen his mouth when he came in. Yundong, is this the shop you mentioned? Yes. It's huge. Gu Yundong looked at the empty room in front of her and was very satisfied. At least, it was much better than her shop in Fengkai County. However, one was a county city and the other was a prefectural city. It was normal for there to be differences. This is the first time I've come in to take a look. It's indeed quite big. However, we're a grocery store. If we place a lot of things, it'll naturally be small. In fact, grocery stores occupied the most space. Just look at modern supermarkets. They sold everything. When there were a lot of items, the place would be instantly full. Let's go to the backyard. Gu Yundong held Gu Dajiang's hand. Gu Dajiang was also very excited. This was his shop. Yes, it would be Yundong's dowry in the future. Although it was a little far from home, it was still a shop in the prefecture capital, and it was so big. He happily followed Gu Yundong to the backyard. The backyard of the shop was not small either. There were 3 rooms. In addition to the kitchen and outhouse, there was also a storeroom used to keep things. There was more than enough room for the 3 members of the Yu family here. It was much better than the previous small courtyard. There was ready-made furniture in the room. The bed, cabinet, and desk were all very neat. The Yu family could use them now. In the future, when they had money, they could buy new furniture if they didn't like it. However, Gu Yundong felt that the Yu family was used to being thrifty and would not change it unless it was time for Eugene to get married. The kitchen doesn't seem to be used much. It's still considered clean. Gu Yundong came out of the kitchen. It'll be convenient to cook here after you buy the ingredients. Uncle Yu smiled until his face was full of wrinkles. He was very excited. Yundong, don't worry. We'll do our best. His eyes were shining with enthusiasm and confidence for the future. Uncle Yu also nodded repeatedly. He touched the pillar at the side lovingly and walked back and forth in the courtyard twice. Actually, Gu Dajiang also wanted to touch it, but he was supported by Gu Yundong. His hand was held tightly and he could not move his feet. He felt frustrated. After Eugene looked at the backyard, he started to roll up his sleeves. Father, you'll go to the front to clean up the shop now. Hey, it'll help too. Uncle Yu felt that he had become a few years younger and followed behind excitedly. Uncle Yu wanted to go too. He had already rolled up his sleeves when Gu Yundong pulled him back. Grandpa Yu, stay here and chat with my father. But if you go to clean up the shop, my father will definitely follow you. Look at his injuries. Uncle Yu immediately looked at Gu Dajiang solemnly. You can't let Yundong down. He's been gone for so long. Come, sit down and talk. You're leaving in a few days. I don't know when we'll meet again. Gu Dajiang could only sigh and rest. Tong Shuitao was quite diligent. She had already gone to the well to get water and carried the basin to the shop. Unexpectedly, as soon as she entered, She heard a voice outside. This shop is indeed open. Let's go in and take a look. Chapter 498. Wanna buy this shop? Tong Shuitao looked up and saw a young girl walking in. She looked to be 15 or 16 years old and had a high posture. There were 2 maidservants following her. She glanced at them, then turned around and shouted, "Brother, there's someone inside." Soon, a man in his 20s followed in. He was also dressed in brocade and looked elegant. Eugene had already walked up to them and asked with a smile, "May I ask what's the matter?" He was smiling, but his face was still injured, so his smile looked a little twisted. The girl immediately took a step back. "Stay away from me." Uncle Yu stepped forward. "What's the matter?" The girl asked arrogantly, "Did you buy this shop?" "We'll be in charge of this shop from now on." The girl sized them up from head to toe for a while. "Just you guys? All right, I want to purchase this shop from you. Just name your price." "Wan, don't be rude," Duan Qian scolded softly. His sister didn't get it, but he did. They were saying they were in charge, which meant the owner was someone else. Duan Wan was a little dissatisfied. "We were the ones who took a fancy to it first. Who knew that someone would intercept us?" The Xen family's shops would be auctioned off by the imperial court after they were confiscated. Furthermore, the earlier the better. After all, the sudden closure of many shops in such a huge prefectural city would affect the lives of the commoners. The Duan family had bought the most shops this time. 1/3 of the Xian family's shops had gone into their pockets. However, while Duan Qian had bought so many shops, the one he wanted the most was not on the auction list. He felt that it was strange and went to ask. Those people only said that it had been sold. Duan Qian thought very highly of this shop. The size was secondary. The main thing was that it was in a good location. He had been determined to get this shop before, and he did not expect such an outcome. Since the seal on the shop was removed this morning, he had gotten someone to watch over it. If they saw the owner, they had to quickly return to the Duan family to report. That was why he came to the shop with Duan Wan, who insisted on coming along when he heard the news. Seeing that the Yu father and son didn't look too good after hearing Duan Wan's words, he immediately pushed Duan Wan back and took a few steps forward. He said politely, "Little brother, I'm from the Duan family. I want to talk to your boss about this shop. I wonder if it's convenient for you to introduce me to them." The Duan family? Uncle Yu and Eugene were naturally not unfamiliar with the Duan family. In their eyes, this was a colossus like the Xan family. Previously, the Xan family was still suppressing them. Now that the entire Xan family had been exterminated, there was no one in the Wanqing prefecture who could suppress the Duan family. The Duan family wanted to buy this shop? The 2 of them immediately became worried. This was not to be trifled with. Uncle Yu was about to go in to look for Gu Yundong, but Tong Shuitao had already turned around smartly and gone in. She didn't dare to let Gu Dajiang and Uncle Yu know. She could only whisper into her Miss' ear, "Miss, there are 2 people outside who call themselves the Duan family's young miss and young master. They want to buy our shop." "The Duan family?" Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. When she saw Gu Dajiang looking over, she quickly said, "Father, chat with Grandpa Yu first. He'll talk to Uncle Yu and the others about how to set up this shop and repair it." When Gu Dajiang saw Tong Shuitao's expression just now, he knew that it was definitely not that simple. However, he was afraid that Uncle Yu would be worried, so he did not say anything and only nodded. Gu Yundong gave Shui Rong a look and asked him to watch the 2 of them while she brought Tong Shuitao to the shop in front. Chapter 499. What does the shop do? Gu Yundong walked into the shop and recognized him at a glance. At the same time, Duan Qian and Duan Wan also recognized her. The 2 of them immediately narrowed their eyes and straightened their expressions. Duan Qian instantly smiled. "So it's Miss Gu. We didn't have the time to talk the last time we met. I didn't expect to see you again today." The father and son of the Yu family were surprised. The Gu girl actually knew the eldest young master of the Duan family? Gu Yundong smiled. "I heard that young Master Duan wants to buy our shop?" Duan Qian sighed inwardly. After seeing Gu Yundong, he knew that there was not much hope. Others might consider the Duan family status and sell the shop to them if they were unwilling to offend the Duan family. But this Miss Gu. Actually, after Gu Yundong left that day, he had asked Mo Shulin about her background. Mo Shulin only said, "She's not a big shot. She doesn't have any background. However, I don't dare to offend her. Oh, and it's also because of her that your family can do this sugar business. So if you see her next time, stay away." Duan Qian had yet to recover from the shock of this girl being associated with the sugar business when he was stunned by Mo Zilin's incoherent words. Since she didn't have any background, why didn't he dare to offend her? If he had a sugar business because of her, why shouldn't he say thank you when he saw her? Instead, he had to stay far away? However, Mo Shulin did not say anything else. Others also kept their mouths shut even when he asked them. However, Duan Wan had told her that at the entrance of the Exin residence that day, she had personally seen Miss Gu throw a stone at the back of the head of the fourth brother who was following Lord Mo. Not only was he not angry, he even invited her in with a smile. This series of actions was really confusing, but Duan Qian understood. Not only could he not offend this Miss Gu, but he should also try his best to befriend her. Hence, when he heard Gu Yundong's question, he said very gently, "Yes, we do have the intention to buy this shop. I wonder if Miss Gu has the intention to sell it. We can negotiate the price." Gu Yundong shook her head. "I don't intend to sell this shop. Besides, it was given to me by someone else. If I sell it, wouldn't I be letting them down?" Gu Yundong was telling the truth and did not hint anything. However, Duan Qian's expression changed slightly. Someone gave it to her? Who would dare to give away the shop that the imperial court had confiscated? It could only be the imperial court. Duan Qian instantly put away all his thoughts and changed the topic. "In that case, it seems that we can only look elsewhere." He looked helpless. He turned around and saw the Yu father and son. He then looked at the relatively neat shop and asked curiously, "Miss Gu, are you planning to open for business? What kind of business are you doing? If you need me, just tell me. The Duan family can still be of use in Wanqing Prefecture." Gu Yundong actually wanted to be on good terms with the Duan family, especially when Duan Qian's attitude was very friendly. After all, she was going to leave soon. If the three members of the Yu family opened a shop in such a prosperous area, they would easily be targeted if they did not have any backing. Young Master Duan came at the right time. Hence, Gu Yundong asked Tong Shuetao to tidy up the tables and chairs. After inviting Duan Qian and Duan Wan to sit down, she said, "I do plan to tidy up and open for business." "Oh, will you continue to sell satin and cloth, or tea and wine? Or maybe jewelry?" Chapter 500. Gu Yundong is not an ordinary person. Gu Yundong was silent. "Is that all you can think of?" She looked at Duan Qian and his sister, whose eyes were curious, and said, "It's going to be a grocery store." Duan Qian was speechless. The commotion on the street outside was a little loud, and he didn't seem to have heard her clearly. Duan Wan stood up directly. "What did you say? A grocery store? You're using such a good shop in such a good location as a grocery store?" Duan Qian suddenly reacted and pulled her. Wan, don't be rude." Duan Wan snorted angrily and suddenly turned her head away, not saying anything else. Gu Yundong laughed. "It's precisely because the location is good that it's used as a grocery store. I looked at the entire street. There are only 2 grocery stores, and they're small and incomprehensive. People need it urgently." Duan Qian thought for a moment. He had really not noticed this. The Duan family was mainly in the tea business. Of course, they had dabbled in other businesses, but he really didn't have a grocery store. As for whether it was convenient for shopping or not, with their status, they would not care. There were servants who would do it. Now that he heard Gu Yundong's words, it made sense. "Young Master Duan, are you looking down on my small grocery store?" Gu Yundong asked with a smile. Duan Qian immediately shook his head. "Of course not. It's just unexpected." "Will young Master Duan still take care of our small grocery store?" Miss Gu is too humble. No matter what, we've met twice. I'm thick-skinned enough to call myself your friend. Friends naturally take care of each other. Thank you very much. Gu Yundong then introduced the Yu father and son. These are Uncle Yu and Brother Eugene. They will manage this shop from now on. Uncle Yu, you heard what young Master Duan said. If you encounter any trouble in the future, feel free to look for him. We are friends. Duan Qian, I didn't expect you to be so good at climbing up the ladder. The corners of Duan Wan's mouth twitched. Couldn't this woman tell that he was just being polite? Uncle Yu was a little excited and nervous, and his palms were sweating. Although he had gotten used to it, he had never interacted with someone of Duan Qian's status. Hello, young Master Duan. I'm Yu Yanghong. Please take care of me. Duan Qian stood up. Manager Yu, you're too polite. He had heard that Lady Gu addressed the Yu father and son as uncle and brother. In other words, she did not treat them as ordinary subordinates. They had a deeper bond. He looked at Gu Yundong. Miss Gu, do you mean to leave Wanqing Prefecture? Yes, I'll leave after a while. I might come over occasionally in the future. The next time I come, I'll bring something for young Master Duan. Perhaps we can work together? Duan Qian was stunned. She was indeed not from Wanqing Prefecture. However, he quickly became interested in the collaboration she mentioned. He wanted to know more, but Gu Yundong did not elaborate. The two of them exchanged a few polite words. Duan Qian left a jade token and told Uncle Yu to look for him if anything happened. Then he left. To be able to leave behind a jade token was already very sincere. Gu Yundong walked them out. Looking at their backs as they spoke at the door, Uncle Yu heaved a sigh of relief and said, no wonder the Gu girl could protect her mother and younger siblings all the way to the Xuanhe Prefecture in such a difficult environment. She even got a shop and servants in just half a year. This girl is not an ordinary person. Eugene nodded and looked down at the jade pendant in his hand. Father, this. Chapter 501. Shop sections. Uncle Yu also took a look, then carefully put away the jade token. This jade token is a favor from the Duan family. It can only be used for a limited number of times. If we can solve the trouble, we'll solve it ourselves. Unless we really have no choice, we won't look for the Duan family. Eugene understood, but the fighting spirit in his heart was getting higher and higher. That's right. The younger sister of the Gu family was 2 years younger than him, but she was so capable. Now that his starting point was already so high, he would definitely be able to achieve something. Gu Yundong returned and saw that Uncle Yu and his son had begun to clean the shop diligently again. She went to the backyard. Gu Dajiang had been very worried about what had happened in front of the shop. He seemed to hear a few unfamiliar voices. He almost could not help but go over to take a look. When he saw Gu Yundong return, he hurriedly asked, "What happened ahead?" "It's nothing. It's just that someone wants to buy our shop, so I rejected them." "They didn't make things difficult for you, did they?" "No, we even became friends." Gu Dajiang felt that his Yundong was really amazing. He was so proud of her. The shop was quickly tidied up. Gu Yundong looked at the cabinets in front of him. These cabinets were all erected against the wall. They were used to store all kinds of cloth. Now, they could be used to store bottles and jars, so it was not easy to bump into them. The shop also sold ready-made clothes. There were a few shelves made of wooden poles to hang clothes. Now, they were placed there to hang dried meat and fish. There was also a cubicle next to it for fitting. However, in this day and age, there were not many people trying on clothes outside, so this cubicle was piled with some things. What Gu Yundong meant was that the cubicle could be torn down so that the space could become larger. At that time, they could split the entire shop into several areas. Food such as oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, rice, ginger, garlic, wine, tea, and snacks would all be placed in this area. There was an area for daily necessities. There were pots, pans, knitted shoes, hats, bamboo baskets, boxes, various tools, cheaper brushes, ink, paper, and ink stones, as well as kites and spinning tops for children. In that case, the space was even a little small. However, in the beginning, they would do it one step at a time. It was just that with so many things, if he wanted to tidy them up, he would need to build a few cabinets and shelves. Gu Yundong thought of Carpenter Tan. Although he did not like to talk, he was efficient. She handed this matter to Uncle Yu. They were familiar with Carpenter Tan. The group of people planned the shop. Everyone would write down any good suggestions they thought of. Everyone would express their opinions and consolidate them when the time came. In the end, when the proposal was out, the shop could be renovated. After the discussion, everyone realized that it was already very late. The sky was about to darken. However, everyone still felt unsatisfied. The sense of accomplishment of slowly filling the empty shop with everyone's thoughts made them feel especially satisfied. Gu Yundong led everyone to eat, then asked Shui Rong to drive Uncle Yu and the rest back in a carriage. The 3 members of the Yu family were very excited. Not only did they talk about this along the way, but Uncle Yu had also thought of where to buy the cheapest goods. When they reached home, Uncle Yu did not even enter the house. He went straight to Carpenter Tan's house. Uncle Yu thought for a moment and did not go back. He turned around and entered Grandpa Zhang's courtyard next door. Grandpa Zhang and his family were having dinner. Seeing him come in, Grandpa Zhang started to tremble. He quickly moved a stool for him. "Yang Hong, are you here too?" Chapter 502. Hiring the Zhang family's first son. Grandpa Zhang was so excited that he couldn't speak, and the Zhang family looked at him in confusion. Uncle Yu knew what he meant and nodded. "We went to see that shop today. It's indeed not bad. It's a little far from here, but it's fine, it's fine. Distance is not a problem. It's still in the city." Uncle Yu said, "I haven't finished speaking." All right. Tell me, I won't interrupt you." The Zhang family looked at Grandpa Zhang with a strange expression. Uncle Yu also felt that he might have come to the wrong place. He had never known that Grandpa Zhang's personality could be like this. Letting out a breath, he thought about leaving as soon as possible. "What I mean is that the shop has a backyard. If it's too late and you can't come back in time, you can stay there for the night." "That's good. I'm fine with it." Grandpa Zhang was even happier. He wanted to say that commute would truly be a problem for his old arms and legs. He didn't expect there to be a place to stay. That would be easy. Uncle Yu looked at him and found it hard to explain. "But Grandpa Zhang, we want to hire another person. We plan to hire Brother Zhang." "What?" Grandpa Zhang's expression changed in a second. He suddenly stood up and raised his voice. "What did you say?" The Zhang family finally understood. The person called Brother Zhang widened his eyes and asked in disbelief, "Yang Hong, do you mean that your family is going to open a shop now? Do you even plan to hire me as a shop assistant?" "I do have such plans. That shop belongs to the Gu family. They want to take care of our family. However, the shop is indeed big. I know that Brother Zhang is diligent, honest, and tolerant. I thought that if you're willing, you can go to the shop to help." Brother Zhang's eyes lit up and he instantly straightened his back. "I'm willing, of course I'm willing." The Zhang family completely understood and were immediately overjoyed, especially Brother Zhang's wife. When she heard that her man had found a stable job, her eyes turned red. The others were very envious, but they were also happy for him. If Brother Zhang worked in the shop, the entire family would benefit. Grandpa Zhang was the only one left. He snorted coldly and turned his back to everyone. He squatted on the ground and sulked. Uncle Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Grandpa Zhang, we didn't mean to make things difficult for you. It's just that this job requires strength. I hired Brother Zhang to go elsewhere to collect the goods. There are many places to go every day. I know Grandpa Zhang is young and strong, but I'm afraid of exhausting you, right?" Grandpa Zhang's wife couldn't help but kick his foot. "All right, don't you know how old you are?" You're panting after taking a few steps. You still want to follow them everywhere? Aren't you afraid of falling sick from exhaustion? When the time comes, even if you earn money, you won't be able to live to enjoy it. Wake up, didn't the Yu family hire our first son? If you continue to have such a bad expression, what will happen to you if he loses the job? Grandpa Zhang immediately stood up from the ground. "That won't do. Yang Hong, you promised me that you would hire my first son." "Of course." Only then did Grandpa Zhang become happy. "Forget it. If his son went to do it, so be it. He could also show off to others. However, there was no time for him to show off. When Uncle Yu went to Carpenter Tan to talk about this, someone happened to come to look for Carpenter Tan to order something and heard Uncle Yes' words from beginning to end. The neighbors in this area instantly knew that Gu Dajiang's family had opened a shop and handed it to the Yu family to manage. Chapter 503. Barraged. More importantly, this shop was located in the center of the prefectural city. It was the best location in the city. It was said that the shop was very big, the size of 2 grocery stores. Alright, everyone was in an uproar. Then, they swarmed towards the Yu family's house. They were so crowded at the door that they could fight. All of them used the best eloquence in their lives to recommend themselves desperately, wanting to work in that shop. Until Uncle Yu told everyone in a regretful tone that he had already hired the eldest son of the Zhang family next door. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they started scolding old Zhang. I wondered why he was hypocritically telling us not to spout nonsense this morning. Did he already know about it? That's right. Wasn't he at old Yes' house in the morning? He must have heard the entire process. I saw Yang Hong go to old Zhang's house just now. Oh my, if I had known, I would have stopped him. All of them instantly scolded the pretentious old man Zhang. Therefore, when he gathered his emotions and planned to go out to brag and tell everyone that his son had got a job, he was almost beaten up by his neighbors. When the 3 members of the Yu family heard the commotion outside, they all smiled and went to bed to rest. In the following days, Gu Yundong and the Yu family began to renovate the provision store. The eldest son of the Zhang family also came to help. He was indeed diligent. Carpenter Tan sent over all kinds of sturdy shelves in a few days. Everyone was in high spirits and set them up one by one. In an instant, the place became decent. Gu Dajiang had come once. He had been forced by Gu Yundong to recuperate in the inn. Now that his wound had already scabbed over, it was just itchy and uncomfortable. Sometimes, Gu Dajiang couldn't help but grab it, and it would bleed. Gu Yundong asked Shui Rong to keep an eye on him. She even wrapped Gu Dajiang's 10 fingers in gauze. Gu Dajiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at his thick fingers. He didn't expect such a day to come for him. During the renovation of the shop, Duan Qian came twice. Gu Yundong found this person quite interesting and even invited him to the Xuanhe prefecture when he was free. Unexpectedly, Duan Qian agreed. I do want to make a trip to the Xuanhe prefecture. I heard that someone started manufacturing and selling white sugar in that place. Gu Yundong, who had created white sugar, was speechless. She could only touch her nose and laugh dryly. Duan Wan had never been here. Anyway, Gu Yundong felt that she was making a fuss. Perhaps because there was no pressure from the Xan family, as the young lady of the Duan family, she was a little arrogant. After the shop was renovated, Uncle Yu brought the eldest son of the Zhang family to the countryside to collect things, including eggs, food, and some daily necessities. He had already contacted the providers a few days ago. Now that he had given them money, he could just bring them back. On the first day of business, Gu Yundong invited the lion dance team over to have a good time. Most importantly, she had invited Duan Qian over. As the heir of the Duan clan, Duan Qian's face was not unfamiliar in this city. Everyone who came to watch the show knew that the Duan family was endorsing the shop. Originally, some of the wealthy families in the city who wanted to buy this shop, and even the small officials and generals with some power, had all given up their thoughts now. Instead, they openly bought some gifts to congratulate the shopkeeper on opening. It was just that when they saw the shop's plaque, they were a little speechless. Why? Was this a grocery store? Chapter 504. Leaving. Why wasn't it a slightly higher-end shop? Everyone was puzzled, but this did not stop the grocery store's business from booming. It was only the first day and there was already an endless stream of people coming and going in the grocery store. When it was time to settle the accounts at night, they actually earned 100 taels of silver. This was a grocery store. The profits were not high to begin with, but there was actually such a gratifying result in a day. Nowadays, Eugene was the one who kept the accounts in the shop. Uncle Yu did not know many words, so it was too difficult to keep the accounts. The Yu family was overjoyed. Seeing how excited they were, Gu Yundong simply brought everyone to the restaurant for a meal to celebrate. Of course, it could also be considered as a farewell party. She planned to leave. When the Yu family heard this, their joy decreased by more than half. Uncle Yu frowned even more. "You're leaving just like that? Isn't that a little too fast? Has Dajiang recovered from his injuries? Didn't you say last time that he would need to recuperate for half a month?" "That's right, Gu girl. Why don't you stay for a few more days? This shop has only opened for a day. You have to wait until it stabilizes before going back, right?" "Sister Gu, I'm a little uncertain now that you're leaving." Even the eldest son of the Zhang family, who had always been very quiet, put down his chopsticks and advised, "Wait a few more days." Gu Yundong laughed. "You're too humble. Although I was in the grocery store today, I didn't speak or help from the beginning to the end. No matter what happened or who you met, you were the ones who were busy. Moreover, you were methodical and clear. I think it's very impressive. You can do it." But it was too sudden. Perhaps they had been too engrossed in chatting previously and working together to come up with ideas. Unknowingly, so many days had passed. They did not realize that the Gu family was about to leave. In the end, Uncle Yu waved his hand. "Forget it. Your home is in the Xuanhe prefecture, and your family is there. Dajiang has been longing to see his wife and children. He has been waiting for so long. If not for the fact that he needs to recuperate, I think he would have rushed back. Especially these few days, he keeps saying that he has recovered. He's extremely anxious." Gu Dajiang felt a little embarrassed by his words, but he really missed them. He had not seen them for more than half a year. He wondered if they had forgotten about him. The meal was a little sad. Before leaving, Gu Yundong told Eugene about his aunt and uncle, as well as his uncle, who were still missing. "I've pasted their portraits on the notice board. I'll leave two for you. The address on this is the grocery store. If anyone comes looking for me, send me a letter." Eugene took the portrait carefully. "Don't worry, Sister Gu. I'll get my father to ask around when he collects goods. If there's any news, I'll inform you immediately." "Thanks a lot." Eugene pursed his lips. "We should be the ones thanking you. Sister Gu, take care. I'll keep an eye on this shop and record the accounts. I'll wait for you to come back and review them." "Okay." Gu Yundong left. After leaving the restaurant, the two sides parted ways. After returning to the inn, the few of them began to organize their things, planning to leave Wanqing Prefecture the next day. Hearing that they were leaving, the waiter of the inn was actually a little reluctant. After all, they had already stayed here for a month and a half, and Miss Gu was a generous person. If he helped her, he would be rewarded with silver. He had already cultivated a deep friendship with her, and he almost thought that they were living in the inn forever. Chapter 505. Yundong, "You've changed too much." Now that she was leaving, the waiter really felt lost. He went back and brought some pickled vegetables for Gu Yundong. They were made by his mother. "Miss Gu, bring the food along to eat on the way. In the future, you must remember that there is a waiter in Wanqing Prefecture." Gu Yundong was speechless. After thinking for a while, she said, "I'll come again. Don't worry, I'll remember you." The waiter immediately became happy. Gu Yundong began to move the things onto the carriage bit by bit. She did not let Gu Dajiang do it, as their journey would definitely be bumpy and difficult. Although Gu Dajiang had recovered, he was different from them. He would probably suffer a lot along the way. For this reason, she specially laid a thick layer of mattress in the carriage. Gu Dajiang looked at the sky. "Yundong, the weather is quite hot." Gu Yundong was unmoved. "It won't be bumpy with all the mattress. If it's hot, just fan yourself." She didn't look at Gu Dajiang and instructed Shui Rong to put away the pots and bowls. Gu Yundong asked Tong Shuitao to fill a few water bags. Now that she was experienced, she knew how long she could make until nightfall. When the time came, she could take a rest in a town or village she passed. By the time everything was ready, it was already 7 in the morning. The few of them got into the carriage and headed straight for the city gate. Unexpectedly, as soon as she left the inn, She saw Uncle Yu and Uncle Yu standing there with two huge bags in their hands. She did not know what they were carrying. Gu Yundong quickly got down from the carriage. Grandpa Yu, why are you here? If you're going back, of course we have to come and send you off. Don't worry, Eugene and the Zhang family's eldest son are in the shop. It won't be a problem. As he spoke, he handed over the two bags. It's not anything good. It's just some food and necessities. I got up in the morning and baked the flatbread inside. It's not much. It's a token of my appreciation. Gu Yundong touched it through the cloth. How is it not much? Checking the weight, she felt that Grandpa Yu probably did not sleep much last night. Uncle Yu chased them into the carriage. Alright, you guys can go up. It's getting late. I won't hold you up. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang bade them farewell before setting off again. When they arrived at the city gate, they bumped into Duan Qian. He seemed to have come to deliver something to them, but it was a little too much. Gu Yundong was worried that the carriage would collapse, so when no one was paying attention, she put away some things that were not very useful into her spatial storage. After bidding farewell, the four of them sped up a little. The carriage was driven by Shui Rong. Tong Shuitao would occasionally change seats with him. They walked at a leisurely pace and saw a lot of scenery. Gu Yundong had arranged everything in an orderly manner. Gu Dajiang was actually mentally prepared. The journey might not be easy. Unexpectedly, it was much more comfortable than he had imagined. Gu Yundong still followed the doctor's instructions. She would rather walk slowly on the road to ensure that they had good food, especially Gu Dajiang, who needed more nourishment. Therefore, she would personally cook. Gu Dajiang watched her cook the porridge steadily, his eyes filled with relief and joy. Father, come take it. It's very hot. Gu Yundong brought him a bowl and Gu Dajiang instantly came back to his senses. He took a bite slowly and his eyes lit up. You can actually make such delicious porridge in the wilderness. Gu Yundong smiled. Gu Dajiang continued, Yundong, you've changed too much from before. Gu Yundong's heart skipped a beat. Finally, it was here. Chapter 506. So, the same person. Gu Yundong's fingers paused and she heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. However, she had already thought of the words she had prepared before. Unexpectedly, before she could speak, she heard Gu Dajiang sigh faintly. Indeed, that person is right. You have really grown up. Gu Yundong was speechless. What did he mean? Father, that person? Who was it? Why did it feel like she couldn't use the words she had thought about 100 times? Gu Dajiang took another sip of porridge before saying, that person was a traveling Taoist priest. He was especially capable. I had been studying for a few years and didn't really believe what these people say. If you hadn't cried too hard back then and couldn't be put into sleep no matter what, and the doctors couldn't do anything, I wouldn't have listened to him. Gu Yundong was a little confused. Wait, what did that mean? Gu Dajiang explained to her, your mother was beaten up by Madame Zhao until she gave birth prematurely. He no longer called the two people from the Gu family his parents. Gu Yundong had already told him that while he had distracted the attention of the bandits for the sake of his family, in the end, his family of 4 had been chased out of the team by his parents to fend for themselves. In that kind of environment, his father knew that his wife was foolish and his children were young. There was only one outcome for them after they were chased out, but his father still did it. Although Gu Dajiang had long been disappointed in his parents, this time, he had really severed all ties with them and would no longer treat them as family. When you were born, you were thin and small, and your breathing was extremely weak. However, you kept crying. No matter how we coaxed you, it was useless unless you cried until you were tired and fell asleep. It was that traveling Taoist who helped you stop crying. He also said that your soul was unstable, and in the future, you would be an extremely easily agitated person until you were 14 years old. If you safely survived a death tribulation and your soul returned to your body, you would truly grow up. Gu Yundong was dumbfounded. Return of the soul? Why was it like listening to a heavenly book? She frowned and thought carefully about the host's personality. She was indeed a sentimental person. She could cry for 2 hours under the blanket for small matters. She had never liked the host's personality. She felt that if she didn't stand up for herself in such an environment, how could she not be bullied? She had been very puzzled. With Gu Dajiang's personality, how could he have raised such a fragile daughter? Now that she heard him say this, she could understand. Wait a minute. Gu Yundong's frown deepened. She thought of her life in the modern world. She was the complete opposite of the original owner of the body. Be it in the orphanage or later in society, she looked at everything indifferently and coldly. Therefore, she did not even have a friend. She did not even feel a deep bond with her foster parents who had adopted her. Gu Yundong could not help but fall into deep thought. So, her modern self was also in an unstable state? Because of a famine and an apocalypse, the two of them experienced a death tribulation and became one? Gu Yundong pursed her lips tightly. Now that she thought about it, some things were very strange. For example, how she was easily moved by her mother and siblings. In just a month, she was able to take care of them, protect them, and feel sorry for them. For example, even though she had never met Gu Dajiang, she could still feel her heart ache and panic when she saw him seriously injured. Was it because they were her family to begin with? That little girl is gone. Yundong, what's wrong? Gu Dajiang saw that she was silent and didn't know what to think. He shook her worriedly. Gu Yundong suddenly came back to her senses. When she looked at Gu Dajiang again, her emotions surged and she could not calm down for a long time. After a long time, she took a deep breath and smiled brightly. Father, it's so good to have you around. Gu Dajiang grinned and patted her head. I should be the one saying that. Yundong, I'm very glad that you survived that calamity. You're still here. So happy that I don't know what to say. What Gu Dajiang was most afraid of was that she wouldn't be able to survive the death tribulation at the age of 14. Now that everything was in the past, Yundong would be safe and sound in the future and live a long life. Gu Yundong let him touch his head. Tears welled up in her eyes. It was great. Really, these were her parents and her family. She did not occupy anyone else's body. All of this was hers to begin with. It turned out that she was not alone. Not far away, Shui Rong and Tong Shuitao could not help but look at each other when they saw that the two of them were a little sad. They stayed far away and did not ruin it. After eating the porridge, the group set off again. Perhaps because they had finally talked about it, Gu Yundong was not as restrained as before. Their relationship seemed to have taken a step closer. However, seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the Xuanhe prefecture, Gu Yundong could no longer hide the things that she had kept to herself. Gu Dajiang acutely noticed that she had been hesitating for the past few days. Actually, Gu Dajiang had a feeling that Yundong had something to say. She had always told him happy things, but how could everything go according to plan in life? He sighed slightly. If you have something to say it. I'm not someone who can't take things. Gu Yundong looked at him and finally said, when we were chased away by the old Gu family, younger uncle was sent away by them. When younger uncle returned and did not see us, he also left the old Gu family. Until now, his whereabouts are still unknown. The carriage slowly moved forward. Shui Rong was driving the carriage outside, and Tong Shuitao was sitting on the shaft. Only Gu Yundong's soft voice could be heard in the carriage. There's also Eldest Aunt's family. Eldest aunt and uncle have been separated from Mulan and Yuan. Cousin Meng is dead. Gu Dajiang's body trembled slightly. His eyes widened, and his breathing quickened. After a long time, he calmed down slightly, but his voice was slightly hoarse. Then what about Yuanji? Yuanji was brought back to the Yongning prefecture by Ding Jincheng and sent to the Gu family. The last time I went to the Yongning prefecture to look for you, I saw that he wasn't doing well, so I made a plan to bring him out. He's at our house now, going to school with Yunshu. It's just that I don't know where Eldest Aunt and the others are. Gu Dajiang clenched his fists tightly and lowered his head. He didn't speak for a long time. Father, I'm fine. Gu Dajiang waved his hand. I'm already mentally prepared. It's fine. How many people had died on the way to escape? He was very clear about it. However, Bien Mulan's death still made him feel heavy-hearted. He seemed to still remember the little girl who hugged his thigh and called him uncle. In the blink of an eye, she had grown up and gotten married. When she saw him, she still obediently called him uncle. She even said that when she gave birth, she would ask him to give the child a nice name and teach the child how to read in the future. However, the child was nowhere to be seen, and even she was gone. His little Cabbage has been taken by a pig? Gu Yundong did not say anything else and let him slowly digest this information. For the rest of the journey, Gu Dajiang was very silent. His depressed mood only gradually improved the next day. The dead had already passed away, and the living had to continue. Although he didn't know where Aunt Gu and Uncle Gu were and how they were doing, Gu Dajiang knew that they were definitely still alive. They would meet eventually. He tried his best to put aside those negative emotions. At the thought that he was about to see his wife and children, his mood finally improved. But when he saw that Gu Yundong looked like she had something to say, Gu Dajiang's eyebrows could not help but twitch. What other bad news do you have for me? There shouldn't be any left, right? He was only concerned about his eldest sister and younger brother now. His own family was all around him. Yundong had already told him what was going on. Gu Yundong thought for a moment. Actually, it's not bad news. Then tell me. Well, actually, before I found father, I was engaged. What? Gu Dajiang suddenly jumped up and hit his head on the carriage roof. With a bang, Gu Dajiang grimaced and covered his head. He glared at Gu Yundong angrily. Say that again. What did you do? Gu Yundong quickly helped him up. She was afraid that if he moved too abruptly, his head would not be the only thing injured. However, when she met Gu Dajiang's widened eyes, she could only say softly again, I'm engaged. Why did it sound like a question? Could it be that if he said no, she would immediately deny it? Why are you engaged? How old are you? Do you know what kind of person the other party is? Don't you know that people can be sinister, especially since you're good-looking and rich? Who knows if the other party has ulterior motives? His family is also insensible. Your mother hasn't recovered from her illness, and your father hasn't been found, and yet they came to propose marriage. They're bullying you for being young and ignorant without an elder to take care of you. No, I don't agree to this marriage. The more Gu Dajiang spoke, the angrier he became. The angrier he became, the more he felt that the other party was not a good person. He felt like his heart was about to explode. His beautiful little Cabbage had been stolen by a pig just like that? Ridiculous, ridiculous. Gu Yundong knew that he would have such a reaction. She laughed dryly and whispered, Father, it's just an engagement. An engagement? So it can be cancelled? Gu Yundong was speechless. No, what she meant was that they planned to wait until mother's illness was cured and father was found before getting married. Gu Dajiang snorted coldly. We have to discuss the matter of canceling the engagement slowly. We can't be hasty. Most importantly, we can't ruin your reputation. Let's think about it later. It's best if the other party makes a mistake. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. I did not expect you to be such a father. No, she had never thought of canceling the engagement. Father, Brother Xiao is a good person. When I first started doing business, he was the one who gave me the capital. All right, and you said that he's not bullying you because you're young and ignorant. He wanted you to owe him a favor and guilt you into marrying him. It's all an old trick. I stopped playing this one more than 10 years ago. Gu Yundong rubbed her forehead. Father, have I been acting very ignorant these days? Was this the meaning of father-in-law becoming more and more displeased with his son-in-law? Stopped playing this one more than 10 years ago? Could it be that her father had used it before? Gu Yundong's suspicious gaze landed on Gu Dajiang. She wanted to ask him how he got together with her mother back then. Gu Dajiang's fear of home, however, Gu Dajiang's expression was very dark. He didn't realize what he had just said. He was still muttering indignantly that Xiao Qingyun cannot be a good person. Gu Yundong felt that it was better to let his father digest the news for a period of time. She would definitely make more mistakes if she said anything now. The more she protected Xiao Qingyuan, the angrier her father would become. Hence, she obediently remained silent and listened to Gu Dajiang's nagging. She scolded Xiao Qingyuan terribly. Seeing her like this, Gu Dajiang stopped after saying a few words. However, he was still whining unhappily. In the end, he asked her, "Other than this, is there anything else you want to tell me?" Gu Yundong immediately shook her head. Other than making the old Gu family half dead, there should be nothing else. Only then was Gu Dajiang slightly satisfied. However, he had to criticize Xiao Qingyuan from time to time for the rest of the journey. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Were all fathers like this? Her mother liked Xiao Qingyuan very much. Of course, she didn't dare to say this to Gu Dajiang. A few days later, the carriage finally passed Xuanhe Prefecture and arrived at Fengkai County. When they reached the familiar place, Gu Yundong relaxed. She went to look at Gu Dajiang, but he was very silent and looked a little uneasy. "Father, are you feeling unwell?" "No." Gu Dajiang coughed lightly and hurriedly shook his head. He was just a little nervous. "Yes, nervous." After entering the county city, Gu Dajiang asked Gu Yundong for a bronze mirror. She had placed it in the carriage. The first time Gu Dajiang saw it, he thought that his Yundong had grown up and knew the importance of beauty. He did not expect to use it now. Holding the mirror, Gu Dajiang looked at himself carefully and asked his daughter, "Look at Dad. Does my complexion look bad? Am I very haggard with dark circles under my eyes? Or do I look old? What if your mother can't recognize me?" "Father, why do you make it sound like you're going on a blind date?" She looked at Gu Dajiang seriously and nodded seriously. "No, father is very handsome. You're like a handsome young master. Mother will definitely recognize you at first glance." "Yeah, right?" Gu Yundong nodded vigorously. Gu Dajiang took a closer look before returning the bronze mirror worriedly. Gu Yundong comforted him and diverted his attention. "Father, relax. Do you want to take a look at the county? Well, come often in the future. Would you like to familiarize yourself with it first?" Gu Dajiang felt that it made sense. He lifted the curtain and looked outside. He even reminded Shui Rong, who was riding, "Slow down and take a look at the county city. Don't go to the wrong place in the future." Gu Yundong was speechless. Only Tong Shuetao was excited. As if she had returned to her territory, she excitedly introduced the scenery by the roadside to them. Gradually, the carriage approached Gus. Seeing the huge plaque at the door, Tong Shuetao couldn't help but raise her voice. She said proudly, "This is our shop." "Gus? Our shop?" Gu Dajiang's eyes widened as he hurriedly shouted at Shui Rong, "Stop the carriage. I'll go take a look first." Shui Rong suddenly pulled the reins. Gu Dajiang lifted the curtain of the carriage door and got out without a word. Gu Yundong rubbed her forehead. Was her father afraid of meeting his family after such a long time of departure? Shaking her head, she could only follow him out of the carriage. However, as she approached Gus, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. Gu Dajiang checking the account book. Gu Yundong squinted at the shop next door. When did a pharmacy appear here? Wasn't it a snack store in the past? She couldn't help but take a few more glances. Gu Dajiang had already strode into Gus. Zhuangzi was diligently wiping the table. He did not even care about the sweat on his forehead. The boss had said that the most important thing in the food business was to be clean and tidy. If he worked hard and strove to achieve good results, he might be able to become a shopkeeper and reach the peak of his life. Gu Dajiang's footsteps sounded as he entered. Zhuangzi suddenly turned around and immediately welcomed him. "Sir, what do you want to buy? We have the most high-end white sugar in our shop. It's exclusive in the entire Fengkai County. There's also canned dried fruit and jam. Look, they're not expensive. Everyone who has eaten them says that they're delicious." Zhuangzi saw that the stranger was unfamiliar and looked around the shop curiously when he entered. He knew that this was his first time here. He immediately introduced everything to him excitedly, hoping that the man could make a big deal for him. After all, the other party looked quite rich, right? Before Gu Dajiang could speak, Gu Yundong entered from behind. When Zhuangzi saw her, his eyes widened and he took a few steps forward excitedly. Boss, you're back? As he spoke, he hurriedly shouted behind him, Shopkeeper, our boss is back. Zhang was taking things from the back. When he heard the shout, he hurriedly ran out, his body still covered in sweat. When he saw Gu Yundong coming over, he quickly wiped his hands. Boss, you're back. It's been hard on you this time. Quick, sit down. We'll pour some tea. As he spoke, he ran off excitedly. One could tell from the smile on his face that he was very excited and happy. Zhuangzi had already finished wiping the chair. Gu Yundong helped Gu Dajiang over and introduced, This is my father, Gu Dajiang. Zhuangzi was stunned and said in shock, Boss? You found him? Yes. Zhuangzi hurriedly bowed to Gu Dajiang. Hello, old boss. I'm Zhuangzi. Gu Dajiang, who thought that he was still very young and elegant, couldn't help but twitch his lips. It was Zhang who suddenly patted his head. What are you calling him? He said respectfully, Master. Gu Yundong couldn't help but want to laugh, but Gu Dajiang had already started sizing up the shop curiously. He went to take a look at the white sugar. Gu Yundong had given it to him before. He had even soaked it in water and mixed it with porridge. It could be used to make different delicious food. Looking at these white sugar particles, Gu Dajiang still found it unbelievable. This was actually created by Yundong. What a great invention. His daughter was indeed smart and capable. So much pride. Gu Dajiang straightened his back even more. Then he looked at the cans, dried fruits, and other things. Zhuangzi eagerly introduced them to him and even gave him some to try. Zhang handed the account book to Gu Yundong. Boss, these are the accounts for the past few months. Take a look. Gu Yundong took the account book but did not open it. Instead, she handed it to Gu Dajiang, who was walking over. Father, you used to be an accountant. Are you going to check this? Let me see. Gu Dajiang's interest was piqued. It had been a long time since he had touched an account book. Holding his own account book now felt like a dream. Zhuangzi brought him a chair. Gu Dajiang sat down and flipped it over. However, just as he flipped to the first page, his pupils suddenly widened and he sucked in a cold breath. The medicine shop next door, he could not help but rub his eyes and read it again. It didn't change. Did that mean he wasn't mistaken? Gu Dajiang looked up at Gu Yundong in a daze. Gu Yundong looked puzzled. Her gaze fell on the account book. Father, is there a problem? Zhang, who was at the side, could not help but feel nervous. Was there a problem with the account book? There couldn't be. He had personally taken care of this account. Every payment was clearly recorded, and the goods purchased and sold were also clearly recorded. Before closing the shop every night, he would check again very carefully. Gu Dajiang pointed at the number on the account book. This shop earned 900 taels on the first day of opening? That's right. Gu Dajiang felt lightheaded. Was he too inexperienced? A small shop in a small county town. It actually made a net profit of 900 taels a day? Or could it be that the disparity of wealth between Fengkai County and Jiangyu County was really so great that he thought that he had been a fake accountant a few years ago? Gu Yundong finally understood what he meant. She could not help but laugh. Father, this is the first day. You know that on the first day, people are greedy for fresh food. They have to come in to take a look at the new shop and then follow the trend to buy something. There won't be much after that. Gu Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief. That was right. However, 900 taels on the first day was still ridiculous. Gu Dajiang took a sip of water to calm himself down and continued flipping to the second page. 600 taels. On the third page, 500 taels. On the fourth page, 500 taels. The fifth page. Don't think that he couldn't tell. It had earned less later on, but that was because it had imported less goods. Gu Dajiang raised his head and looked at Gu Yundong. He felt that his grown-up daughter was probably a blow dealer. Was this the small business she was talking about? Could it be that the big business in her heart would earn tens of thousands of taels a day? Poverty had limited his imagination. Gu Dajiang was a little numb. Towards the end, perhaps because there was less and less white sugar, the price finally dropped a lot and became a little more normal. However, new canned food was added later on, and the price began to rise again. Seeing that her father was reading the account book seriously, Gu Dajiang took the time to ask Zhuangzi, why did the shop next door become a pharmacy? Zhuangzi was stunned and immediately smiled mysteriously. Boss, that's not an ordinary pharmacy. That's Brother Xiao's new pharmacy. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. Xiao Qingyuan's shop? Yes, it was opened about half a month ago. Gu Yundong's interest was piqued. They'll go over and take a look. Previously, she had heard him say that he wanted to do a medicinal herb business. She did not expect him to move so quickly. He had already opened a shop in the county city, and it was next to her Gus. Gu Yundong was still a little happy. She turned around and walked towards the shop next door. Unexpectedly, Gu Dajiang's sharp ears had already vaguely heard the words Xiao Qinjian. He immediately closed the account book and followed behind. Xiao Qingyuan's shop was smaller than her Gus. Perhaps it had just opened, so there were not many medicinal herbs. There was a shop assistant in the shop who looked to be about the same age as Zhuangzi. At this moment, he was pounding medicine with a pestle. Behind the counter was an old doctor. When Gu Yundong entered, the shop assistant immediately put down his work and came up to her. Miss, what medicine do you want to buy? Do you have a prescription? I don't have the prescription. I want to ask, do you have this medicine here? Everything you say is right. Gu Yundong took out a small porcelain bottle. It was the bottle of medicine that Xiao Qingyuan had given her to treat internal injuries. The shop assistant took a closer look and immediately nodded. Yes. Only our pharmacy has this medicine. Miss, this bottle must have been sold by our shop. How much do you want? They'll get it for you now. Give me a bottle. Other than this, Gu Yundong also asked for a few herbs for Gu Dajiang. Before leaving, Dr. Yu prescribed medicine for them so that Gu Dajiang could better recuperate. Now, he had almost used it up. She wanted to buy some more. These medicines were more common and could be found in ordinary shops. As expected, the shop assistant had prepared everything for her. After wrapping it, he handed it over. Miss, it's a total of 10 taels of silver. Gu Yundong reached out to take the silver, but before she could hand it over, she was stopped. She turned around and met Gu Dajiang's angry expression. 10 taels of silver? What a scam. It's only a few medicinal herbs, but he charged you so much. Previously, physician Yu from the prefectural city also prescribed these medicines, but I didn't see them being so expensive. I knew that he isn't a good person. I can tell from the way he charges money. He's a black-hearted person. Gu Yundong was speechless. Father, you're still angry. However, when the shop assistant heard this, he immediately explained, Sir, that's not the case. Those herbs are indeed ordinary herbs and are not expensive. However, this bottle of medicine for internal injuries is not an ordinary medicine. It was personally developed by our boss. In the entire Fengkai County and even the Xuanhe Prefecture, only we have it. Moreover, this medicine is effective, so the price is naturally higher. Gu Dajiang glared at Gu Yundong and said, Look, he even developed it himself. He's not a doctor. Isn't he messing around? This is extremely irresponsible. He'll definitely cause trouble and implicate you in the future. Gu Yundong said softly, Father, this was the medicine that cured your internal injuries back then. Gu Dajiang choked and was speechless. However, he still did not give up. He held her hand and started to talk about something else. Look at this shop. Why does it have to be beside Gus? It must be because Gus' business is good. He is deliberately trying to attract customers. Also, this shop hasn't been cleaned up. One look and I can tell that the counter is covered in dirt. He touched it. It was clean and spotless. Gu Dajiang was speechless. He pointed at the cabinet. And these medicines? They're too few. What if a guest comes to prescribe medicine and it's unavailable? Wouldn't that be wasting the patient's time? By the way, it doesn't smell good either. I think I even smell something foul. The shop assistant couldn't take it anymore. This guy was clearly here to cause trouble. He looked around and saw the big broom beside him. He went over to pick it up. Unexpectedly, a pair of hands blocked him. The shop assistant raised his head and looked at the person in surprise. Zhuangzi? Why are you stopping me? You didn't even hear what he said. Zhuangzi whispered into his ear, "Don't be silly. That's our boss and that's her father." Your boss? Your boss can spout nonsense? The waiter stopped mid-sentence and widened his eyes slightly. You mean to your boss? Isn't she our boss fiancé? That's right. So you know why my boss father said that, right? The shop assistant was enlightened. So, is the father-in-law being picky? You must understand. All fathers are like this, especially when our boss is so outstanding. The shop assistant nodded and immediately put down the broom. He ran to Dajiang's side and nodded seriously. Sir, you're right. The smell of this pharmacy isn't good, and it's not clean. Look, there are spider webs over there. I think there are too many things that need to be improved. Just give us your opinion. We will definitely change it. If you want to tear down the window, just tear down the window. If you want to tear down the door, just tear down the door. You can also break down that wall. We can find someone to work on it this afternoon. Dajiang, no, which side are you on? This was his future son-in-law's shop, and how could he dare to tear down the windows and walls? Should come to the door. Yundong almost died of laughter. Where did Xiao Qingyuan find such a genius? Her father was choked, but he still had a look on his face that said, I'm very serious. As long as you give the order, I promise to go through fire and water. Dajiang wanted to scold him, but he was indeed the one nitpicking just now. It didn't make sense. He glared at the shop assistant. Let's go home. Sir, take care. This staircase is high. Come, I'll support you. You're welcome to raise your opinion next time. Well, definitely change what you said. We're very sincere. The waiter cleverly went forward to support Dajiang. After walking Dajiang to the carriage, he still had a smile on his face and did not look forced at all. Yundong tried her best to hold back her laughter. Before getting into the carriage, she glanced at him. What's your name? The shop assistant's eyes lit up, and his body trembled in excitement. The lady boss had valued him. He quickly replied, My name is Jiang Bao. You are good, Yundong said as she got into the carriage. The smile on Jiang Bao's face was almost overflowing. He happily watched the carriage ride further and further away before turning his head happily. Unexpectedly, when she turned around, she met Zhuangzi's resentful gaze, as if he had done something heinous. After thinking hard, Jiang Bao felt that other than the fact that his flattery was a little loud, everything was normal. Zhuangzi felt that his path to becoming a shopkeeper was even more difficult. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have reminded him just now. He would have just let him offend the boss and the old master. Zhuangzi thought darkly, then strode back to his shop. Yundong finally stopped laughing, but when she turned around, she heard Dajiang mutter, that Xiao Qingyuan has good taste. This good taste referred to the fact that he had chosen a smart employee. More importantly, it referred to the fact that he had taken a fancy to Dajiang's daughter. But the tone was sour. Yundong's heart warmed. Her father had always been a reasonable person. This time, he was picking on a shop that was obviously fine. Wasn't it because his daughter was about to be taken away by someone else? He was very unhappy. She did not mention Xiao Qingyuan again. Instead, she talked about Yunshu. Yunshu and Yuanji are both studying in this county. Father, do you want to take a look? Dajiang thought for a moment. Yes, I should. They're studying in school. As their father, I should visit their teacher and thank him for his guidance and care. He was a scholar in the past, so he had to be polite, especially since his 2 children were there. The other party was a knowledgeable top scholar. With his guidance, it was better than many people studying hard for more than 10 years. This was his children's luck. He should have paid a visit to thank him as soon as possible. Therefore, when the carriage turned around and headed for Qin Wenzhang's academy, Dajiang asked, shouldn't we prepare something for the visit? Gu Yundong took out 2 cans from the box at the back. She had stolen them from the shop just now. Those are enough, she said. Yunshu's master likes them. Gu Dajiang thought for a moment and nodded. All right, they're homemade and suitable. The carriage quickly stopped at the entrance of the school. Gu Dajiang alighted from the carriage and tidied his clothes. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Gu Yundong stood behind him. When the gatekeeper opened the door and saw Gu Dajiang, he was stunned for a moment. However, when he saw Gu Yundong, he was immediately delighted. Miss Gu, you're back? The scholar is indeed the scholar. Gu Dajiang blinked. Why did the concierge of the teacher's house seem to be very familiar with his daughter? Moreover, he was just like the shopkeeper and shop assistant in the shop. He looked as happy as if he had seen his family. Gu Dajiang restrained his expression and was about to speak when he heard the guard say, Miss Gu, you're here to look for Yunshu and Yunji, right? You're not lucky. They're not here now. Oh, today's a day off? The gatekeeper shook his head and said with a smile, No, the master borrowed the martial arts field of the county school and brought the students to learn archery. Gu Yundong suddenly understood. However, the county school was on the other side of the city. It was not appropriate for them to go now. Hence, she could only say to Gu Dajiang, Let's go home first. We'll see Yunshu and the others when they come back from school. All right. As he didn't see his kids, Gu Dajiang was a little disappointed. However, he had already waited for so long, so there was no hurry. After getting back into the carriage, Gu Yundong asked Tong Shuetao to go straight back to Yongfu village. There was no need to stop in between. After the carriage left for a while, Gu Dajiang said with some emotion, The top scholar is indeed the top scholar. His teaching methods are different from others. Every student should dabble in the 6 arts, namely etiquette, music, archery, books, and math. However, ordinary private schools only teach students the knowledge in books. As long as they use it to deal with the imperial examinations, they will treat the other subjects as playthings. They don't know that this is pedantic and inflexible, narrowing the students' horizons. The top scholar has nurtured them in all aspects since Yunshu and the others were young children. It's really admirable. Gu Yundong widened his eyes. Father, wake up. You can't become Qin Wenzhang's fanboy. Wouldn't she be shorter when she saw him in the future? She quickly interrupted. Father, this means that I have keen eyes. Back then, I brought Yunshu to several schools and met a few teachers before choosing this place. As expected, Gu Dajiang turned his gaze to her. Yes, Yundong's contribution is the greatest. Actually, in the beginning, this top scholar didn't plan to accept Yunshu. I thought of many ways to convince him. It was quite difficult. This person isn't easy to talk to at all. Is that so? Gu Dajiang frowned. Yundong, you've worked too hard. Leave such matters to me in the future. Of course. She nodded solemnly. The father and daughter talked as they walked towards Yongfu village. Tong Shuao, who was outside the carriage, heard this and the corners of her mouth twitched. Miss, aren't you afraid of being exposed? Mr. Qin is too easy to talk to in front of you. Otherwise, why would he accept the 2 young masters? He did his best. With that thought in mind, the carriage finally drove into Yongfu village. It was no longer rare for carriages to enter Yongfu village, but everyone was familiar with Gu Yundong's, especially with Tong Shuetao, whom they had not seen for a long time, in the front. Someone immediately asked loudly, Is it the Gu family's Yundong? Yundong, you're back? Gu Yundong lifted the curtain and looked in the direction of the voice. It was someone from the village. It seemed that her husband was working in Gu Yundong's workshop. She nodded at the person. Hello, Auntie. Oh my, is Master Gu really back? It must have been hard on you. The weather is very hot. Do you want some water? I'll get some for you. Gu Yundong smiled and waved her hand. No need. I'm going home now. Oh yes. You just came back. Your mother must miss you. Go back quickly. Gu Yundong bade her farewell and lowered the curtain. She turned around and saw Gu Dajiang taking a deep breath. Father, we are home. Father, are you still nervous? Gu Dajiang gripped the carriage door frame tightly and shook his head. I'm not nervous. I'm just happy. Yes, happy. Gu Yundong did not say anything. The carriage soon arrived at the foot of the mountain. Gu Yundong was the first to get out. After waiting for a moment, Gu Dajiang slowly got out of the carriage. Looking at the green brick house in front of him, he was stunned for a moment. However, he was already dumbfounded by the amount of money in the account book he had seen in the shop. Now that he looked at the house, he was only surprised for a moment before he felt that it was normal. On the other hand, the people in the house filled him with an urgent and hesitant ambivalence. Tong Shuitao had already run into the courtyard. Without even taking a look at Father Tong, she shouted, "Mrs. Back, Mrs. Back." Gu Yundong turned his head. "Father, we're home." Gu Dajiang's fingers trembled. He hummed heavily and strode in. The two of them walked to the courtyard. The people from the Gu family had already come out. When Gu Dajiang looked up, he saw a familiar figure running over. His breathing suddenly quickened, and a smile instantly appeared on his face. Niang. The figure flashed past him and ran behind him, hugging Gu Yundong, who was standing behind him. Gu Dajiang's smile froze. Soon he saw another small figure run over. She also walked past him and reached out to hug Gu Yundong's thigh. Madame Yang said pitifully, Dong Dong, you're finally back. I missed you so much. Without you around, I couldn't sleep or eat well. I want to eat fried chicken drumsticks. Big sis, I missed you too. I missed you so much that my heart broke. Gu Yundong was almost amused by the two of them. Why was it so funny when they said they missed her? Where did they learn the phrases? Heartbroken? She patted Madame Yang's back and rubbed Gu Yung's head. She turned around and saw Gu Dajiang looking at the mother and daughter greedily. She knew that he was excited. Unfortunately, Madame Yang and Gu Yunke did not notice him. On the other hand, the others who followed out of the courtyard looked at Gu Dajiang in confusion. Aunt Ku was probably the first person to guess his identity. Gu Dajiang was quite handsome and had been eating well recently. Now, he looked a few years younger. The three siblings of the Gu family had inherited their parents' good looks. Perhaps because they were both males, Gu Yunshu looked the most similar to Gu Dajiang. Looking at the nose and mouth that looked exactly like Gu Yunshu's, Aunt Ku more or less knew who this person was. She really did not expect Gu Yundong to find her father without any warning. It was a pleasant surprise. Gu Yundong finally soothed Madame Yang and Yunke. She patted Madame Yang's back and pushed her shoulder to turn her around. She smiled and pointed at Gu Dajiang. Mother, look who's here. Madame Yang blinked and was stunned. Her gaze slowly fixed on Gu Dajiang's face. Gu Yunke also widened her eyes curiously and looked at him. Gu Dajiang stood there motionless as the mother and daughter sized him up. His palms were already sweating slightly. Madame Yang's eyes and her mouth widened. I'm sorry, Niang. A moment later, she suddenly screamed. Ah! Then she suddenly ran to Gu Dajiang and hugged him as if she was hugging Gu Yundong. She did not realize that there was anything wrong with hugging her husband in public. However, the completely awake Gu Dajiang, who had studied and knew etiquette very well, also didn't care at all. He hugged his wife tightly. Unlike the joy she felt when she hugged Gu Yundong just now, Madame Yang could not help but cry. Dajiang, it's Dajiang. Gu Dajiang's voice choked. It's me, Niang. I'm sorry for making you wait so long. I'm sorry. Dajiang, don't go. Don't go. Yes, I'm not leaving. I'll be with you guys from now on. Our family will never be separated again. Madame Yang started to cry again. Gu Dajiang patted her back and coaxed her softly. He smiled patiently with a doting gaze. The people around them were dumbfounded and sighed in their hearts. It turned out that this was the old master that Madam, Miss, and young master had been looking for. No wonder they kept saying that old master was a very gentle person. Aunt Ku heaved a sigh of relief. In fact, she had wondered if this Gu Dajiang, whom she had never seen, had long forgotten about his wife and children and remarried and had children elsewhere. After all, Madame Yang's situation was special. At this age, very few people would be willing to cherish a wife who knew nothing like a child. Moreover, after the disaster, who knew if they were still alive? It was normal for a man like him, who was educated and capable, to get married and have children. She had never said these words to Gu Yundong. At that time, she had thought that it would be difficult to find Gu Dajiang in this world, so she would let them keep this wish in their hearts. She did not expect to see him now and realized that she had been too narrow-minded. Aunt Ke heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, she was no longer worried. She gave Shinsidian and the others a look and left the space for the family to reunite. They went to the kitchen to prepare delicious food to welcome them. Tong Shuetao did her best to introduce Shui Rong, who was also unfamiliar with the place, and even helped him tidy up a room. Madame Yang finally stopped crying, but she still refused to let go of Gu Dajiang. She held his hand tightly, as if she was afraid that he would disappear again. Gu Yundong laughed and shook her head. Then she looked at Gu Yunke, who was still standing by his leg and looking at them curiously. She squatted down and said softly, "Kiki, haven't you always been curious about what Daddy looks like?" "This is Daddy." The little girl was confused. She actually had no impression of Gu Dajiang at all. It was only because her brother often mentioned her father to her that she knew of his existence. Her heart was filled with yearning and anticipation. However, now that she had really seen him, she did not dare to go forward. Gu Dajiang also squatted down and looked into the little girl's eyes. "Kiki-san, Dad, would you like to come over and let Dad hug you?" Gu Yunke was a little hesitant. Seeing his expectant gaze, she shifted her feet. Seeing this, Gu Dajiang suddenly took out a straw doll from behind him. "Father made this. Can he give it to you?" Powerful father, the little girl's eyes lit up. "Xiaotu, do you like it?" She nodded. "I like it so much." Gu Yunke also had playmates in the village. Their father would weave beautiful grass mantises and crickets for them. She was very envious, but her father was not by her side, so Father Tong made it up for her. It was big and beautiful, but he was not her father. It was different. Now that her father was in front of her, the little rabbit that he had woven for her was unique. Others did not know how to do it, but her father did. The little girl could not help but puff out her chest proudly. She looked up at Gu Yundong, who gave her a small push. "Go!" She immediately ran to Gu Dajiang, but she didn't dare to hug him. Gu Dajiang stuffed the straw bunny into her hand and picked the little girl up. "Him? She's quite heavy." He thought back to when he was in the old Gu family. The young lady was thin and small, as if she would break if he was not careful. Gu Yundong went over and held Madame Yang's hand. "Father, let's go in and talk." "Sure, okay." Gu Yundong brought him to his and Madame Yang's room. Looking at the clean and warm room, he could not help but tear up. This was their home, their own house. Shui Rong quietly came over and moved Gu Dajiang's luggage out of the carriage. Madame Yang opened the box in a hurry and tidied up his things herself. She had a bright smile on her face that Gu Yundong had never seen before. Perhaps she was still very ignorant and didn't know the feelings of an adult, but her reliance and importance on Gu Dajiang were real. The box contained the things they had bought along the way, as well as pens, ink, paper, and inkstones. Madame Yang recognized all of them and placed them on the desk. There were also his clothes. They were folded one piece after another and placed in the wardrobe. Gu Yundong took a glance and saw that Gu Young's clothes were still inside. After some thought, he went over and took out the small clothes. Then, she said to Gu Dajiang, "Kiki will sleep with me first. Father, you can have a good chat with Mother tonight." Gu Dajiang was speechless. He glared at Gu Yundong and coughed lightly. "It's fine for Kiki to sleep with us." Before he could finish speaking, he heard the little girl in his arms immediately say, "I want to sleep with eldest sister. I want to sleep with eldest sister." After shouting, she noticed Gu Dajiang's hurtful expression and couldn't bear to see him like this. She quickly whispered into his ear, "Father, I just..." She didn't know what to say. But this was the first time Dajiang heard Gu Yunke call her father. He felt a little smug. He did not need her to give him a reason and found it for her. Father knows that you haven't seen eldest sister for many days and there's a lot of stuff that you want to tell her, right? The little girl immediately nodded. Yes, yes, yes. Gu Yundong clicked her tongue. Just as she was about to complain, Tong Shuetao's voice came from the door. Miss, young master is back. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Yunshu had already run over. Is my big sister back? Big sister, where are you? Behind him was Bian Yuanzi's voice. Yunshu, wait for me. Gu Yunshu could not wait any longer. She ran to Madame Yang's room and stepped into the door frame. He did not see Gu Yundong standing in the shade. The first person he saw was a tall man carrying Gu Yunke over. A whole family. Gu Yunshu looked up in a daze. He wanted to see clearly, but the man had already squatted down and was at eye level with him. The next moment, Gu Yunshu's tears suddenly fell. His voice was a little illusory. Father, it's me, Yunshu. Father is back. The book in Gu Yunshu's hand fell to the ground. He was stunned. He carefully reached out to touch Gu Dajiang's face and asked again uncertainly, Father? I'm here. Gu Dajiang pulled him into his arms and stroked his small head. It's been hard on Yunshu during this period of time. Your eldest sister already said that you're a small man. You're daddy's pride. At that moment, all of Gu Yunshu's bittersweet emotions surged. He hugged Gu Dajiang's neck. Father, it's really father. It's a living father. You're warm. He cried as he spoke out of breath. It's not hard on me. Big sister is the one who's done all the work. I'm a man. I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to see my father. Boo-hoo, Gu Dajiang's heart ached. The little guy was young, but he always wanted to support his family. If Yundong hadn't suddenly grown up, he would have treated the entire family as his own responsibility. He held his son and his daughter on either side. Seeing that his son could not stop crying and his daughter was about to cry, he quickly reached out and patted Gu Yunshu's shoulder. Don't cry anymore. Look at Kiki, it was too late. Emotions were the most infectious things, especially for children. Seeing her beloved brother cry so aggrievedly, the little girl could not help but cry. Gu Dajiang was helpless. He might as well let them vent as much as they wanted. He only hugged the two children tightly, as if they were his most precious treasures. When he looked up, she happened to see Bian Yunji standing not far away, wiping his eyes in a daze. His eyes were filled with envy and joy. He suddenly thought of Bian Mulan and his heart ached. He smiled at Bian Yunji and said, You don't remember me anymore. Come, let me hug you. Bian Yunji paused for a moment and instantly pounced into his arms. Eldest uncle, Gu Dajiang carried the three crying children, but his heart was sore and swollen. His heart ached, but he was also satisfied. On the other hand, Madame Yang, who was tidying up, quickly ran over and hugged Gu Dajiang from behind. Then, they cried together. Only Gu Yundong could not help but touch her forehead. She looked at the large-scale crying scene inside. After a while, she finally walked forward with tears in her eyes. All right, stop crying. Calm down and drink some water. Only then did they leave Gu Dajiang's arms and look at Gu Yundong. Gu Yunshu smiled through his tears again. Eldest sister, did you bring father back? That's right. Isn't big sister very good? Yes, yes. You're amazing. The little ones nodded vigorously. The group of people sat on the bed. Unlike Madame Yang and Gu Yunke, Gu Yunshu had a stomach full of questions. He also had many things to tell his father and elder sister. Gu Dajiang was very patient as he recounted what had happened. It was as if time was not time when the family reunited. It was only when Tong Shuetao came over and said that dinner was ready that everyone felt that the sky was about to turn dark. There was no one else in the dining room. Aunt Ku and the rest knew better than to disturb them. After dinner, Gu Yundong asked softly, Where's Xiao Qingyuan? Why haven't I seen him? There were 3 monks living in the temple. Before she could finish speaking, the breathing beside her calmed down and the little girl fell asleep. Gu Yundong smiled and fell asleep with the girl in her arms. The next day, other than her, everyone else woke up late. She let go of Gu Yung's small body. Yes, when the girl was sleeping with her sister, her sleeping posture was still very proper. How come when she was sleeping with Yunshu, her head would end up with his feet? Gu Yundong shook her head and went out to wash up. Gu Dajiang had yet to get up. Gu Yundong wanted to take this opportunity to go next door and see how the Xiao family was doing. She didn't even eat breakfast. She just greeted Aunt Ku and hurried back to the Xiao family. However, just as she stepped out of the door, she saw an unfamiliar person standing there. When he saw her, his eyes immediately lit up and he approached her excitedly. He seemed to be waiting for her. Trying to enter the Gu family's workshop, that person's eyes lit up when he saw Gu Yundong. "Miss Gu, you're back?" "You are." Gu Yundong took a closer look but still could not remember who he was. The man had already walked in front of her. He exhaled slightly and introduced himself. "Sister Gu, I'm Qin Kai." Qin Kai? She seemed to have heard this name somewhere before. It was somewhat familiar. However, this guy was indeed a stranger. He should be from this village, right? Seeing her confused look, Qin knew that she did not remember who he was. He hurriedly added, "My father is Qin Liang. I'm the eldest son of the Qin family." Gu Yundong was enlightened by his explanation. So it was him. Antka had once told him that Qin Kai had lost his job in town, so he brought his wife and children back to the Qin family. His life didn't seem to be very good. However, Gu Yundong had a good impression of Qin Liang and Qin Jinbao. In addition, Niao Dan and Yunshu were good friends, so she was very friendly to the Qin family. "So it's Brother Qin?" Gu Yundong smiled. "Brother Qin, what's the matter? Come, let's talk inside. It's hot here." Qin Kai shook his head and refused to enter. He looked a little troubled and hesitant. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. After a while, the man said, "Well, Sister Gu, I did come here today for something. It's just that I don't have much to do at home. Is Sister Gu's workshop short of people? Can I go to work?" Gu Yundong was stunned. She really did not expect him to come over for this. She lowered her eyes. He came alone in the morning and refused to enter. All kinds of signs indicated that Qin Liang definitely did not know that he wanted to work in the Gu family's workshop. Gu Yundong was silent for a while. Her voice became distant. "Brother Qin, the workshop is not short of people now. I heard that Brother Qin went home a few months ago. Why didn't you come when the workshop was recruiting last time?" Qin choked and was a little embarrassed. Of course, he knew that the matter of the Gu family's workshop recruiting people had caused an uproar. Didn't his second brother come back in a hurry and say that he had already been picked because he had done short-term work before? At that time, he had scoffed. Was it worth being so happy to be a long-term worker in a small workshop in the village? If he did it, he would at least be a manager. What was the point of being a long-term worker? Qin Kai was also working in a workshop when he was in town. He was also a small manager. Although there were only 3 or 4 people under him, he was still a manager, right? Besides, that was a workshop in town. He could manage 3 or 4 there. Wouldn't he be able to manage 30 or 40 in the village? He was absolutely unwilling to do long-term work. At first, he thought that if the workshop wanted to recruit people, it would recruit both long-term workers and managers, right? He would go when they recruited managers later. With his experience, his father's status, and the relationship between the Qin family and the Gu family, it would definitely not be a problem. Unexpectedly, the Gu family directly let a servant be the manager. Qin Kai almost spat out a mouthful of blood. His wife also blamed him. She said that he was still putting on airs at this time, especially when he saw that his second brother was getting better and better, and he could only follow his father in the field. However, it had been more than 10 years since he had done such work. It was difficult for him to swing a hoe. His wife also complained every day and felt extremely aggrieved. Chen Jinkai thought that he still had to come to the Gu family to see if they could arrange a job for him. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong left. Someone likes Madame Yang, swear my ass. You're pushing your luck. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and began to get impatient. I just want a guarantee. Chen Jinkai had no choice. Previously, when he worked in that workshop, he had been tricked once. The person in front of him was a little girl who looked very kind. However, for her to have a workshop and a shop at such a young age, she must not be simple. He was also afraid that she would go back on her word. However, Gu Yundong did not intend to continue fooling around with him. If you don't want to say it, then don't. You're hemming and hawing. I don't think you know anything. In that case, let's not waste each other's time. After a pause, she sneered and added, moreover, how long do you think you can do this kind of work that you obtained by threatening me? What path can you have in the future? Even if I recruit you now, I can still chase you away in a few days. With that, Gu Yundong did not look at him again. She had to go back and ask Aunt Ku if anything had happened to her mother while she was away. Could it be that without Chen Jinkai she would not know? Aunt Ku had not mentioned anything unusual to her since she came back. It was probably not a big deal. Chen Jinkai was stunned. Didn't they say that the Gu girl cared about her family the most? Why was she so indifferent after hearing about her mother? Could it be that she was not as patient as she seemed on the surface, and she was done taking care of the abnormal Madame Yang? Seeing that Gu Yundong was about to step into the door, Chen Jin suddenly reacted. He quickly took a few steps forward and shouted anxiously at her back, all right, I'll tell you. Gu Yundong was surprised and turned her head slightly. Huh. Chen Jinkai gritted his teeth. This time, he did not delay anymore and said directly, someone has taken a fancy to your family's assets, so they hired someone to get close to your mother. When that person and your mother develop feelings for each other, they will marry. At that time, they will naturally get the Gu family's workshop, shop, and fruit forest. You should watch your mother. Although all of this belonged to Gu Yundong now, as long as someone married Madame Yang, he would be Gu Yundong's stepfather. Gu Yundong was going to get married sooner or later. When the time came, wouldn't the Gu family's assets still be at home? Gu Yundong was not the only one who was stunned. Even Father Tong's eyebrows twitched. Who is it? Gu Yundong's voice sank and her face was filled with anger. Great, someone actually had designs on her mother. Had they forgotten what she had said and done in the past? Chen Jinkai turned his head. He looked like he knew, but he was unwilling to say it. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and changed the question. Who does he like? Dong Xiulan immediately reacted and slapped her forehead. Yes. Look at me. Yundong, come in and sit for a while. Gu Yundong followed him in and saw Uncle Zhang sitting in the courtyard. And the man sitting opposite Uncle Zhang. The voice she felt familiar with just now was from him. Uncle Jiang is here too. Gu Yundong smiled at Jiang Yongkong. Dong Xiulan moved a stool for her to sit on and said, Brother Jiang brought your Uncle Zhang back. Your Uncle Zhang just can't stay at home. His leg just recovered not long ago, and he couldn't sit still. He insisted on going to the fields early in the morning to take a look. In the end, he slipped and fell. Fortunately, Brother Zhang saw him and sent him back. Gu Yundong shifted her gaze to Zheng Hu's leg. Uncle Zhang's injuries have completely healed, right? Yes, when you left back then, he could already walk. He just cannot stand for too long and must rest once in a while when he walks. However, he couldn't stay idle and even ran into the ground. He must have suffered this time, right? Dong Xiulan glared at Zheng Hu. Zheng Hu rubbed his head and hurriedly turned to talk to Jiang Yongkong. Gu Yundong took a look at the Zheng family. The Zheng family had changed a lot recently. The chair under them had been replaced. Gu Yundong felt a sense of accomplishment when she saw that the family that had helped her in the past was getting better and better. On the other side, Jiang Yongkong left without saying anything. As soon as he left, Gu Yundong asked curiously, "Didn't Uncle Jiang recover from his illness long ago? Why is he still in the village and hasn't returned to town?" Because of what he had done to Shinsidian previously, Gu Yundong tried her best to keep a distance from Jiang Yongkong. Dong Xiulan replied as she picked the vegetables. He said that he went back, but after staying for 2 days, he was uncomfortable because his grandson started crying in the middle of the night again. Anyway, he likes Yongfu village. It doesn't matter if he stays for a few more days. He'll go back when his grandson is older and won't cry so badly. Is that so? Gu Yundong felt that this reason was not very valid. Dong Xiulan nodded. Soon, her attention was no longer on Jiang Yongkong. By the way, Yundong, what do you think about me sending Zheng Jia to school? Zheng Jia was 10 years old. Dong Xiulan and Zheng who felt that their family situation was better now. They wanted to grit their teeth and send him to school. It was good to recognize a few words. Gu Yundong agreed. Of course. Sigh, I'm just worried about which school to send him to, Dong Xiulan said. There are only 2 schools in town. One requires a lot of money. There's the other school. Instigator. As Gu Yundong walked back, she could not help but think carefully. Indeed, Shinsidian was younger and more capable than her mother, and she did not have the temperament of a child like her mother. However, Madame Yang was actually very good-looking. Her appearance could crush a large number of people. Coupled with the Gu family's current wealth, it was not strange for them to target her. She recalled how Jiang Yongkong had helped Shinsidian twice. Madame Yang was also there. Moreover, after his so-called scheme of saving the damsel in distress was exposed, he directly admitted that he had taken a fancy to Shinsidian and agreed not to meet her. However, although he could not see Shinsidian, he did not say that he could not get close to Madame Yang. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly. The moment she stepped through the door, she recalled Chen Jingkai's expression. Why didn't Chen Jingkai say who instigated it? Firstly, he did not dare to say it. Secondly, he could not say it. He was defending the other party. Who was worthy of his protection? Gu Yundong suddenly thought of Madame Fong and her daughter. Yes, wasn't Jiang Yongkong living in Madame Fong and her daughter's house now? Chen Yulan married into the town, and Jiang Yongkong happened to be from the town. Chen Jingkai wanted to say something but hesitated. He refused to say who had designs on her family, and Madame Fong happened to be his second aunt. Everything seemed to be right. Yundong, where did you go so early in the morning? Gu Yundong was stunned. When she came back to her senses, she saw Aunt Ku standing in front of her. She thought for a while and told her what happened just now. In the end, she asked, when I wasn't around, did Jiang Yongkong meet my mother? Aunt Ku looked surprised, but after thinking about it carefully, she felt that it made sense. Her expression instantly became a little ugly. She had promised Yundong to take good care of her mother and younger siblings while she was away. In the end, people with ulterior motives kept approaching her, but she did not discover it in time. No, she had discovered it, but she had gone in the wrong direction. She thought that Jiang Yongkang's target was Shinsidian. A few times, yes. Gu Yundong saw Aunt Kes' expression and knew that she was blaming herself. She hurriedly said, actually, this is just my guess. Perhaps it's not the case. Aunt, don't think too much. It's been hard on you these few days when I wasn't around. Aunt Ku glared at her and snorted before turning to leave. Gu Yundong was helpless. She was still so proud. She shook her head and walked towards her parents' room. It was already so late. The two of them should be up, right? They had indeed got up. The door was half open. Gu Yundong tilted her head slightly and looked inside. She saw her mother sitting in front of the dressing table with a smile on her face. Her father stood behind her mother and combed her mother's hair, his eyes doting and gentle. Her mother held an eyebrow pencil in her hand and said happily, Yundong bought this for me, but I don't know how to draw. It's always very ugly. Aunt Ka helped me draw it and said that I look good. Gu Dajiang took the eyebrow pencil. "I'll draw it for you in the future." He had never used an eyebrow pencil before. In the past, the Gu family wouldn't have afforded such a thing. However, he was a scholar after all. It shouldn't be difficult for him to draw a few more times. "And this rouge, it smells good too." Gu Dajiang leaned over. "Yes, this color is good. It suits you. Apply it for me later." "Okay." Gu Yundong was speechless. Damn it, she was fed dog food so early in the morning. "Father, let me tell you. You're making me think of my brother Xiao. Don't regret it." However, Gu Yundong was happy to see Gu Dajiang and Madame Yang like this. An idea suddenly popped up in her mind. Perhaps it could confirm her guess. "Should go around in the village. Why are you standing at the door?" Gu Dajiang's awkward voice came from inside. It was only then that he saw his daughter standing at the door and felt a little embarrassed. But his hand was still holding the eyebrow pencil and his other hand was on Madame Yang's shoulder. He only used his eyes to signal Gu Yundong to leave quickly. "Father, mother, come out for breakfast first." Seriously, it was fine if they woke up late, but they were still dilly-dallying. She looked down on them. She turned around and left. She quickly returned to her room and saw Gu Yunke sitting on the bed in a daze. Her hair was standing up on her head. Her eyes were filled with confusion, as if she had not realized where she was. When she saw Gu Yundong enter, her eyes widened and she got up from the bed. Eldest sister, you're really back." Gu Yundong went over to hug the little girl. "But, do you still think you're dreaming?" She brought her clothes and helped her put them on. The little girl shook her head and did it herself. She quickly tidied herself up. Yunshu and Yuanji also got up. After everyone sat down at the dining table, Gu Dajiang arrived late with Madame Yang. It was just that on Madame Yang's face. Sure enough, her father's skills needed to be improved. Gu Yundong was probably the only one who could not stop sighing. The other three children were eating happily and did not notice the small actions between their parents. Gu Yunshu was the happiest when the family was reunited. After breakfast, he said to Gu Yundong, "Eldest sister, can I take leave today and not go to school? You and father just came back. I have a lot to say." Before Gu Yundong could answer, Gu Dajiang frowned and said in disagreement, "How can you not go to school? Studying is important. How many people have studied hard for many years without daring to slack off? It's understandable that you're happy that your eldest sister and I are back, but you can't forget your studies." Gu Yunshu was a little disappointed, but he also understood that what his father said made sense. He took a sip of water, pouted, and said disappointedly, Okay. When Gu Dajiang saw this, he thought for a moment and said, "How about this? I'll send you to school. I haven't seen your teacher yet. It's only right for me to visit him." Gu Yunshu was elated, but soon, Gu Yundong, who was beside him, poured a bucket of cold water on him. She had also finished eating. She wiped her mouth and said calmly, "There's no hurry to visit the teacher. It's fine to go another day." Gu Yundong looked at Gu Dajiang. "Father, you've just returned. It's better to go to the village chief's house first and let everyone in the village know that you're back so that there won't be any misunderstandings." Misunderstandings? What misunderstandings? But Gu Dajiang felt that what she said made sense. He had heard Gu Yundong talk about the situation in Yongfu village. He knew that the village chief here was completely different from the one in Gu village. He seemed to have taken good care of Gu Dajiang's family. Indeed, as the father of the children and as the patriarch in the family, he should pay a visit to the village chief's house. Hence, Gu Dajiang nodded. "You're right. Let's go over after dinner." As he spoke, he turned his head and stroked Gu Yunshu's head. "Yunshu, go to school with Yuanji today. I'll accompany you another day, okay?" Gu Yunshu had no objections to eldest sister's words. He immediately nodded. All right. Father, you're right to listen to eldest sister. I'll leave first." After saying that, he called Bien Yuanji and the two of them took their school bags and walked out of the door. Gu Dajiang's hand was still in midair, and his expression froze for a moment.